Trabajemos para lograr un mejor bien para el planeta. Durante la última conferencia regional se aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades, 4 dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. Sin embargo, la región es particularmente vulnerable al cambio climático y a las malas prácticas a nivel productivo que han generado degradación ambiental. Entre 2008 y 2018, las pérdidas relacionadas con desastres climáticos en América Latina y el Caribe se estimaron en 29.000 millones de dólares. En 2022, los desastres relacionados con el clima afectaron a 17 países. Si no actuamos hoy en la adaptación y mitigación al cambio climático, para el 2030, más de 3 millones de personas van a alcanzar la pobreza extrema, en un escenario donde la escasez de agua se... La FAO trabaja de la tierra, los suelos, el agua y la adaptación al cambio climático. En esa labor, también es clave el resguardo de la biodiversidad para lograr un equilibrio ecológico en los ecosistemas, garantizar la diversidad de alimentos y resguardar la cultura de las poblaciones con entornos ambientalmente sanos. A nivel urbano, las áreas verdes y los centros de distribución de alimentos con reducción de huella ambiental, incluyendo el uso eficiente de energía y agua, también son clave. A través de esta prioridad regional, se busca proteger, restaurar y promover el uso sostenible de los ecosistemas terrestres, acuáticos y marinos y luchar contra el cambio climático. Trabajemos juntos hacia sistemas alimentarios resilientes para un futuro más sostenible.
Me sacó de agua, como decimos los agricultores, porque nos dieron una semilla que sí, les digo, si no hubiera sido la semilla que me dio el ingeniero, el agrónomo Soto, para mí, 60, pues hubiéramos perdido, porque yo sembré más de manzana, un cuarto, y solo pude sacar 16 poquitos, y fue una barbaridad que le invertí. Al final, con la semilla que él me dio, fue admirable y toda la gente se admiró. Y he tenido la bondad de regalar, porque debemos de compartir lo poco que se tiene, pues compartirlo con los demás, porque este año que pasó fue una experiencia para los agricultores. Ya era tiempo de sembrar y no teníamos la semilla. Ahora con una nueva semilla quizás nos va a beneficiar mejor, porque sembramos a la hora que nosotros queremos. Así que para mí ha sido una experiencia más, y para todos los que hemos podido repartir las semillas también va a ser otra experiencia más. El tiempo de la que le llamamos el huracán Julia, yo, como les digo, descontroladamente todas las milpas las vi en el suelo. Y ahí me vine a ver y vi que la mía, el pedazo de maíz, no lo había botado. Y ahí todito estaba, y resistente al viento y al tiempo, resistente a la lluvia y todo. Es bien resistente, porque como le digo, uno es por las pobrezas, no le da el bien tratamiento ventajoso la semilla esa. Y he repartido a la de gente que me ha pedido, y todavía tengo que, porque de la buena semilla y para seguir produciéndola. Hay más semilla que a la hora que queremos sembrar la vamos a sembrar.
Pues bien contenta con esta variedad que hemos estado probando en esta parcela. Es la primera vez que probamos Santa Cruz Corrillo. Me ha gustado porque ha sido muy al cambio climático, en parte a la sequía y luego a las fuertes lluvias que tuvimos, y ha sido bastante buena. La dulzura del elote ha estado muy bueno también. Y pues ahora estamos ya sacando lo que es el maíz, que está bonito también. Vamos a seguir trabajando con él. Y la idea es seguirlo distribuyendo con los demás agricultores, productores de esta zona. Les va a gustar.
Pues el apoyo del centro ha sido mucho beneficioso para la comunidad, porque antes, como también pagaba, que desconocíamos de... Ahora como que más hay a las comunidades. Eso ayuda, como les digo, a enseñarles más las técnicas. Y entonces al final se va aprendiendo de la cosecha, ayuda, sería beneficioso que siguieran los proyectos, porque ayuda al agricultor. Desconocíamos lo que es trabajar la tierra, solo en el fósforo y la chapoda, pero ahora estoy agradecido y bueno, motivar a todos los agricultores porque se trata de cuidar la tierrita, porque al final si no la cuidamos no nos va a dar producción y de ella vivimos, pues, a ser honestos.
Hablar siempre que hablemos determinado problema es la mejor estrategia. Hacer esta clase de trabajo demuestra también el interés que tenemos nosotros los técnicos paraguayos, una institución como el CEP. Esta institución es evitar que entre algunas claves de oportunidades que nosotros no tenemos, y si llega a buscar la forma de afectación al desarrollo del rubro o a la parte.
...135 países en el mundo producen hoy plátano y banano. Estamos hablando de más de la mitad del planeta. Uno compara los datos del Censo Agropecuario 2008-2022, es tal vez el cultivo con mayor crecimiento del Paraguay. Más de 40 millones de dólares exportados al año, 16.000 hectáreas, está creciendo, y por eso para nosotros es muy importante trabajar en este ejercicio.
Nos encontramos en Tembiaporá, en Paraguay, celebrando el simulacro regional para los países de la COSABE como parte de la estrategia que se viene desarrollando en América Latina para prepararse, así como la contención de la marchitez por fusarium en la raza acuático-tropical. Estamos aquí con la CENAVE, productores y además organismos internacionales.
Es muy importante esta simulación que está haciendo el CENAVE, el FAO acá en esta zona. Que antes tenemos que estar preparados para cualquier presión de enfermedad.
En este ejercicio los expertos están haciendo sintomatología típica, de vigilancia, utilizando las herramientas que proporciona la inteligencia artificial, y también están haciendo mucho énfasis en lo que se debe hacer para erradicar un foco utilizando las medidas de bioseguridad que son.
Una vida mejor para las personas, sin dejar a nadie atrás. Durante la última conferencia regional de la FAO celebrada en Georgetown, los 3 Estados miembros aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades regionales interconectadas que reflejan las 4 mejoras de la FAO. dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. América Latina y el Caribe es la región más desigual, con niveles persistentes de pobreza rural que afectan desproporcionadamente a las mujeres y a los pueblos indígenas. La exposición a múltiples riesgos que aumentan rápidamente está haciendo que los sistemas agroalimentarios sean vulnerables a diferentes crisis y choques, afectando los medios de vida rurales, especialmente para la agricultura familiar. En América Latina y el Caribe, el 25% de la población se identifica como indígena o afrodescendiente, mientras que las mujeres constituyen el 36% de los trabajadores del sistema agroalimentario en el mundo. Por eso en la región, la FAO trabaja por una mejor vida, priorizando una transformación rural inclusiva a través de acciones dirigidas a acelerar la inversión y la cooperación internacional, la pobreza rural y reducir la desigualdad. Es fundamental para impulsar un desarrollo económico que ofrezca oportunidades para todos. Trabajar juntos las desigualdades para un futuro más sostenible y resiliente.
En un mundo donde la seguridad alimentaria es esencial, las amenazas fitosanitarias representan un desafío para la región de Centroamérica y México. Por eso, desde la Organización de las Naciones Unidas para la Alimentación y la Agricultura, FAO, en conjunto con el Organismo Internacional Regional de Sanidad Agropecuaria, o IRSA, y expertos mundiales, se realizan simulacros regionales sobre respuesta a la langosta voladora.
Estamos en la parte de Quinchín, una de las zonas donde realmente pasan las mangas de langosta, las que se dirigen hacia Campeche. Lo que hacemos acá es pasar a dar información a los municipios para que con ayuda de ellos y con ayuda de nosotros podamos localizar fácilmente lo que son las mangas de langostas.
Lo esencial de este esfuerzo es la creación de mapas de riesgo epidemiológico, que ayudan a identificar las áreas más vulnerables y anticipar posibles brotes, así que talleres de análisis del riesgo con mapas epidemiológicos como el principal espacio de intercambio de información y conocimiento para esta región. Este simulacro nos permite protocolos de actuación, asegurando que cada país esté.
Mi nombre es Verónica Chávez, trabajo para el Servicio de Protección Agropecuaria en Guatemala por parte de OIRSA y en conjunto con el Ministerio de Agricultura, Ganadería y Alimentación. Actualmente estamos haciendo un simulacro frente a situaciones de emergencia y estamos identificando qué hacer frente a presencia de plaga de langosta centroamericana. Para mí, esta invitación ha sido muy importante y significativa, ya que como una persona joven y también como mujer, me ayuda a romper ciertas brechas que en mi país actualmente lamentablemente existe. Y con todo el conocimiento que yo puedo adquirir en este tipo de actividades, también puedo enfrentar ciertas carencias que podemos tener desde el punto de vista del conocimiento y poder crear nuevos proyectos en conjunto con compañeros que ya tengan mucha más experiencia para poder incluir a más gente joven, a más mujeres en este tipo de situaciones.
Con iniciativas como este simulacro, avanzamos hacia sistemas agroalimentarios más resilientes y sostenibles, alineados con los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible.
Para nosotros ha sido de gran importancia la presencia de diferentes organismos nacionales de protección fitosanitaria de la región de Mesoamérica. Este simulacro nos ha permitido articular todas las estrategias para el manejo en la langosta centroamericana. De esta manera poder continuar las acciones enfocadas fundamentalmente bajo la prevención del riesgo fitosanitario en nuestra región, así como las mejores estrategias de manejo que hemos venido trabajando en diferentes escenarios en las distintas los temas relacionados con el cambio climático, gestión de manera que finalmente estamos dando lo estratégico a la agenda de una salud.
Cinco claves para combatir la resistencia a los antimicrobianos, también conocida como RAM. Políticas para el combate contra la RAM bajo el enfoque Una sola salud. Esto significa promover el abordaje integrado de la salud de las personas, animales y del medio ambiente, aumentar el financiamiento, antimicrobianos, mejorar los sistemas de vigilancia y compartir datos. Invertir en monitoreo eficaz es vital para entender y así combatir la resistencia antimicrobiana. Y la educación, establecer leyes más estrictas sobre el uso y eliminación de antimicrobianos para apoyar el trabajo. La colaboración entre ministerios, sociedad civil y el sector privado es esencial para generar conciencia y cambiar del uso de antibióticos bajo la supervisión profesional médica o veterinaria. Es hora de actuar. Comparte este video, infórmate y únete al combate contra la resistencia a los antimicrobianos. Juntos podemos hacer la diferencia.
Necesitamos una mejor. Durante la última conferencia de la FAO Estados miembros, regionales interconectadas que reflejan las cuatro huyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. La región enfrenta desafíos significativos para el hambre y la malnutrición, aunque el número de personas que hambre disminuyó ligeramente en 2010, 40 millones de personas en la región de una dieta saludable en comparación con los promedios mundiales. El estimado de $4,56 por persona por día significa que una de cada 4 personas no puede permitirse una dieta saludable. Por eso en la región, la FAO trabaja por una mejor nutrición, priorizando poner fin al hambre y lograr la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición sin dejar a nadie atrás. La transición hacia dietas saludables y una mejor seguridad alimentaria para los más vulnerables es una prioridad en la región. Trabajemos juntos por la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición para un futuro más brillante.
Cinco claves para entender la ganadería sostenible. Global, el sector ganadero como la degradación del medio ambiente, la pérdida de biodiversidad y los efectos de la crisis climática. La demanda mundial de carne, productos lácteos y huevos aumentará 20% al 2050, lo que requerirá abordar desafíos de una producción adaptada a los ecosistemas. La ganadería es vital en los medios de vida del 64,5% de la población rural en América Latina y el Caribe. Además, ocupa el 84,5% del suelo agrícola de la región. En el mundo hay 770 millones de personas que sobreviven con menos de $1,90 por día. Aproximadamente la mitad depende directamente de la ganadería para su sustento. Satisfacer la creciente demanda de proteína de origen animal conservando el medio ambiente requiere prácticas innovadoras y tecnologías que respeten el entorno natural. La ganadería debe avanzar hacia un modelo sostenible, implementando prácticas que favorezcan la captura de carbono y la preservación de la biodiversidad, favoreciendo a la restauración de los ecosistemas. Es hora de actuar. La actividad ganadera puede contribuir con soluciones integrales a enfrentar el cambio climático, la inseguridad alimentaria o la degradación de los ecosistemas.
Em 2012, a Assembleia General das Nações Unidas proclamou a lei das cooperativas, Um resto significativo, además, se ha declarado 2025 como el Año Internacional de las Cooperativas. La FAO ha identificado a las cooperativas como aliados clave nessa luta, destacando a importância da agricultura na cadeia agroalimentar. A Oficina Regional da FAO trabalha arduamente na renda cooperativa para transformar os sistemas agroalimentários. Com mais de 3 milhões de cooperativas no mundo e 28 mil em América Latina e o Caribe, o impacto desse modelo é indiscutível. Essas cooperativas reúnem a 6 milhões de cooperados, potenciando o empreendimento, o empoderamento econômico e promovendo o desenvolvimento sustentável e inclusivo. A importância das cooperativas radica em sua capacidade para estimular a governança e o desenvolvimento territorial, sendo motores para a transformação dos sistemas agroalimentários. A FAO ha colaborado com diversas organizações especialistas para apresentar um modelo para cooperativas agroalimentárias ante o Latino. Asimismo, com a Aliança Cooperativa Internacional, LACI, celebramos mais de 15 anos de trabalho conjunto fortalecendo o setor. O futuro da segurança alimentar e o desenvolvimento sustentável em nossa região depende em grande medida do fortalecimento e apoio às cooperativas como parte de uma série de instâncias em las que devemos continuar trabalhando por um futuro melhor para todas e para todos.
Necesitamos una mejor producción para las personas, para el planeta. Durante la última conferencia regional de la FAO celebrada en Georgetown, Guyana, los 33 Estados miembros aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades regionales interconectadas que reflejan las 4 mejoras de la FAO, 4 dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. Nuestra región aporta el 14% de la producción mundial de alimentos. Sin embargo, el 33% de las tierras cultivables están moderada y altamente degradadas, y la pérdida de más del 40% de la producción se relaciona con plagas y enfermedades. La FAO trabaja por una mejor producción en la región, priorizando una producción eficiente, inclusiva y sostenible, donde se necesita abordar integralmente las dimensiones ambiental, económica y social de la producción agropecuaria, forestal, de la pesca y de la acuicultura. Trabajemos juntos hacia una producción sostenible, sin dejar a nadie atrás.
El proyecto Cooperación Sur-Sur, Transformación Digital e Innovación en la Agricultura concluye su implementación con resultados clave que han impulsado la mejora de los medios de vida rurales en América Latina y el Caribe. El proyecto involucró a 12 países de la región: Argentina, Barbados, Chile, Costa Rica, Cuba, Guyana, Jamaica, México, Panamá, Surinam, Trinidad y Tobago y Uruguay. Durante su implementación, hubo un total de 800 personas de áreas rurales que participaron directamente del proyecto, mientras que más de 4.000 se beneficiaron de manera indirecta. Además, se realizaron más de 70 capacitaciones en alfabetización digital, se entregaron más de 400 equipos tecnológicos como tablets, drones y computadores, y se promovió el trabajo colaborativo con más de 50 entidades. Este proyecto, liderado por la Organización de las Naciones Unidas para la Alimentación y la Agricultura, la República Popular China y la Comunidad de Estados Latinoamericanos y Caribeños, ha reflejado el compromiso y la importancia de promover la cooperación entre los países del sur global. También ha demostrado que a través de una transformación digital inclusiva en los sectores rurales es posible alcanzar mejores sistemas agroalimentarios que permitan una mejor producción, una mejor nutrición, un mejor medio ambiente y una vida mejor, sin dejar a nadie atrás.
Trabajemos para lograr un mejor medio ambiente para las personas, para el planeta. Durante la última conferencia regional de la FAO celebrada en Georgetown, Guyana, los 33 Estados miembros aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades regionales interconectadas que reflejan las 4 mejoras de la FAO, 4 dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. Los alimentos del suelo y del agua. Sin embargo, la región es particularmente vulnerable al cambio climático y a las malas prácticas a nivel productivo que han generado degradación ambiental. Entre 2008 y 2018, las pérdidas en la producción agrícola relacionadas con desastres climáticos en América Latina y el Caribe se estimaron en $29.000 millones. En 2022, los desastres relacionados con el clima afectaron a 17 países. Si no actuamos hoy en la adaptación y mitigación al cambio climático, para el 2030, más de 3 millones de personas podrían alcanzar la pobreza extrema, en un escenario donde la escasez de agua se agravará. Por eso, en la región, la FAO trabaja por un mejor medio ambiente, priorizando la gestión sostenible de los recursos de la tierra, los suelos, el agua y la adaptación al cambio climático. En esa labor, también es clave el resguardo de la biodiversidad para lograr un equilibrio ecológico en los ecosistemas, garantizar la diversidad de alimentos y resguardar la cultura de las poblaciones con entornos ambientalmente sanos. A nivel urbano, las ciudades verdes y los centros de distribución de alimentos con reducción de huella ambiental, incluyendo el uso eficiente de energía y agua, también son clave. A través de esta prioridad regional, se busca proteger, restaurar y promover el uso sostenible de los ecosistemas terrestres, acuáticos y marinos y luchar contra el cambio climático. Trabajemos juntos hacia sistemas alimentarios resilientes para un futuro más sostenible.
Me sacó de agua, como decimos los agricultores, porque nos dieron una semilla que sí, les digo, si no hubiera sido la semilla que me dio el ingeniero, el agrónomo Soto, para mí 60, pues hubiéramos perdido, porque yo sembré más de manzana, un cuarto, y solo pude sacar 16 poquitos, y fue una barbaridad que le invertí. Al final, con la semilla que él me dio, fue admirable y toda la gente se admiró. Y he tenido la bondad de regalar, porque debemos de compartir lo poco que se tiene, pues compartirlo con los demás, porque no esperar, porque este año que pasó fue una experiencia para los agricultores. Ya era tiempo de sembrar y no teníamos la semilla. Ahora con una nueva semilla quizás nos va a beneficiar mejor, porque sembramos a la hora que nosotros queremos. Así es que para mí ha sido una experiencia más, y para todos los que hemos podido repartir las semillas también va a ser otra experiencia más. El tiempo de la que le llamamos el huracán Julia, yo, como le digo, descontroladamente todas las milpas las vi en el suelo. De ahí me vine a ver y vi que la mía, el pedazo de maíz, no lo había botado. Y ahí todito estaba, y resistente al viento y al tiempo, resistente a la lluvia y todo. Era bien resistente, porque como le digo, uno es por las pobrezas, no le da el bien tratamiento en el asunto del abono, pero fue bien ventajoso la semilla esa. Y he repartido a la mayoría de gente que me ha pedido, y todavía tengo unos encargos que todavía tengo que dar, porque se trata de compartir y sacar la buena semilla de ahí para seguir produciéndola y mantener una semilla que a la hora que queremos sembrar la vamos a sembrar.
Pues bien contenta con esta variedad que hemos estado probando en esta parcela. Es la primera vez que probamos Santa Cruz Corrillo. Me ha gustado porque ha sido muy resistente al cambio climático, en parte a la sequía y luego a las fuertes lluvias que tuvimos, y ha sido bastante buena. La dulzura del elote ha estado muy bueno también. Y pues ahora estamos ya sacando lo que es el maíz, que está muy bonito también. Vamos a seguir trabajando con él. Y la idea es seguirlo distribuyendo con los demás agricultores, productores de esta zona, ¿verdad? Ojalá que mucha gente más lo siga probando, porque sé que les va a gustar.
Pues el apoyo del centro ha sido mucho beneficioso para la comunidad, porque antes, como también pagaba, que desconocíamos de los técnicos. Ahora como que más acercamiento. Eso ayuda, como les digo, a enseñarle más al agricultor, a las técnicas. Y entonces al final se va aprendiendo y se va mejorando en el asunto de la cosecha, el trato al cultivo, plagas, todo eso ayuda. Pero para mí quizás sería beneficioso que siguieran los proyectos, porque ayuda al agricultor, de todas formas, a capacitarlo. desconocíamos lo que es trabajar la tierra, solo como dicen el fósforo y la chapora. Pero ahora con el nuevo método es diferente. Y quizás les digo que agradecido. Y si pudieran de vuelta pues regresar, quizás sería bueno. Motivar a todos los agricultores porque se trata de cuidar la tierrita, porque al final, si no la cuidamos, no nos va a dar producción. Y de ella vivimos, pues, a ser honestos.
Acá para hablar de la prevención. Siempre que hablemos de políticas públicas que generen prevenir un determinado problema es la mejor estrategia. Hacer esta clase de trabajo demuestra también el interés que tenemos nosotros los técnicos paraguayos, una institución como el SENAVE, que justamente una de sus misiones es evitar que entre algunas claves oportunidades que nosotros no tenemos, y si llega a buscar la forma de que no genere una afectación al desarrollo del rubro o a la parte económica.
...135 países en el mundo producen hoy plátano y banano. Estamos hablando de más de la mitad del planeta. Pero compara los datos del Censo Agropecuario 2008-2022, es tal vez el cultivo con mayor crecimiento del Paraguay. Más de 40 millones de dólares exportados al año, 16.000 hectáreas, está creciendo, y por eso para nosotros es muy importante trabajar en este ejercicio.
Nos encontramos en Tembiaporá, en Paraguay, celebrando el simulacro regional para los países de la COSABE como parte de la estrategia de América Latina para prepararse, así como la contención de la marcites por fusarium en la raza 4 tropical. Estamos aquí con la SENAVE, productores y además organismos internacionales.
Es muy importante esta simulación que está haciendo el SENAVE, el FAO acá en esta zona, porque de hoy en adelante tenemos que estar preparados para cualquier aparición de enfermedades.
En este ejercicio, los expertos están haciendo énfasis en sintomatología típica, procesos de vigilancia, utilizando las herramientas que proporciona la inteligencia artificial, y también están haciendo mucho en lo que se debe hacer para erradicar un foco, utilizando las medidas de bioseguridad que son esenciales.
Una vida mejor para las personas, sin dejar a nadie atrás. Durante la última conferencia regional de la FAO, celebrada en Georgetown, Guyana, los 33 Estados miembros aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades regionales interconectadas, que reflejan las 4 mejoras de la FAO. 4 dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. América Latina y el Caribe es la región más desigual, con niveles persistentes de pobreza rural que afectan desproporcionadamente a las mujeres y a los pueblos indígenas. La exposición a múltiples riesgos que aumentan rápidamente está haciendo que los sistemas agroalimentarios sean vulnerables a diferentes crisis y choques, afectando los medios de vida rurales, especialmente para la agricultura familiar. En América Latina y el Caribe, el 25% de la población se identifica como indígena o afrodescendiente, mientras que las mujeres constituyen el 36% de los trabajadores del sistema agroalimentario en el mundo. Por eso en la región, la FAO trabaja por una mejor vida, priorizando una transformación rural inclusiva a través de acciones dirigidas a acelerar la inversión y la cooperación internacional. Erradicar la pobreza rural y reducir las desigualdades es fundamental para impulsar un desarrollo económico que ofrezca oportunidades para todos. Trabajemos juntos para reducir las desigualdades para un futuro más sostenible y resiliente.
En un mundo donde la seguridad alimentaria es esencial, las amenazas fitosanitarias representan un desafío para la región de Centroamérica y México. Por eso, desde la Organización de las Naciones Unidas para la Alimentación y la Agricultura, FAO, en conjunto con el Organismo Internacional Regional de Sanidad Agropecuaria, o IRSA, y expertos mundiales, se realizan simulacros regionales sobre respuesta a la langosta voladora.
Estamos en la parte de Quinchín, una de las zonas donde realmente pasan las mangas de langosta, las que se dirigen hacia Campeche. Lo que hacemos acá es pasar a dar información a los municipios para que con ayuda de ellos y con ayuda de nosotros podamos localizar fácilmente lo que son las mangas de langostas.
Una parte central de este esfuerzo es la creación de mapas de riesgo epidemiológico, que ayudan a identificar las áreas más vulnerables y anticipar posibles brotes, así como talleres de análisis del riesgo con mapas epidemiológicos como el principal espacio de intercambio de información y conocimiento para esta región. Este simulacro nos permite evaluar y mejorar nuestros protocolos de actuación, asegurando que cada país esté mejor preparado para una emergencia fitosanitaria.
Mi nombre es Verónica Chávez, trabajo para el Servicio de Protección Agropecuaria en Guatemala por parte de OIRSA y en conjunto con el Ministerio de Agricultura, Ganadería y Alimentación. Actualmente estamos haciendo un simulacro frente a situaciones de emergencia y estamos identificando qué hacer frente a presencia de plaga de langosta centroamericana. Para mí esta invitación ha sido muy importante y significativa, ya que como una persona joven y también como mujer, me ayuda a romper ciertas brechas que en mi país pues actualmente lamentablemente existe, y con todo el conocimiento que yo puedo adquirir en este tipo de actividades también puedo enfrentar ciertas carencias que podemos tener desde el punto de vista del conocimiento y poder crear nuevos proyectos en conjunto con compañeros que ya tengan mucha más experiencia para poder incluir a más gente joven, a más mujeres en este tipo de situaciones.
Con iniciativas como este simulacro, avanzamos hacia sistemas agroalimentarios más resilientes y sostenibles, alineados con los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible.
Para nosotros ha sido de gran importancia la presencia de diferentes organismos nacionales de protección fitosanitaria de la región de Mesoamérica. Este simulacro nos ha permitido articular todas las estrategias para el manejo en la langosta centroamericana. Y de esta manera poder continuar las acciones enfocadas fundamentalmente bajo la prevención del riesgo fitosanitario en nuestra región, así como las mejores estrategias de manejo que hemos venido trabajando también esta semana, diferentes escenarios en las distintas estrategias teniendo en cuenta los temas relacionados con el cambio climático hacia la gestión de riesgos, de manera que finalmente estamos articulando las 4 mejoras bajo el marco estratégico de la FAO para esta agenda de una salud.
Cinco claves para combatir la resistencia a los antimicrobianos, también conocida como RAM. Políticas para el combate contra la RAM bajo el enfoque Una sola salud. Esto significa promover cuidado de la salud de las personas, animales y del medio ambiente. Aumentar el financiamiento. Es fundamental asignar más recursos para acciones efectivas en la lucha contra la resistencia antimicrobiana. Mejorar los sistemas de vigilancia y compartir datos. Invertir en monitoreo eficaz es vital para entender y así combatir la resistencia antimicrobiana. Reforzar la normativa y la legislación. Establecer leyes más estrictas sobre el uso y eliminación de antimicrobianos es clave para proteger el medio ambiente. Apoyar el trabajo multisectorial. La colaboración entre ministerios, sociedad civil y el sector privado es esencial para generar conciencia y cambiar comportamientos, promoviendo el uso de antibióticos bajo la supervisión profesional médica o veterinaria. Es hora de actuar. Comparte este video, infórmate y únete al combate contra la resistencia a los antimicrobianos. Juntos podemos hacer la diferencia.
Necesitamos una mejor nutrición para las personas, para el planeta. Durante la última conferencia regional de la FAO, celebrada en Georgetown, Guyana, los 33 Estados miembros aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades regionales interconectadas que reflejan las 4 mejoras de la FAO. 4 dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. La región enfrenta desafíos significativos para erradicar el hambre y la malnutrición. Aunque el número de personas que sufren hambre disminuyó ligeramente en 2023, 41 millones de personas en la región aún la sufren. América Latina y el Caribe registran el costo más alto de una dieta saludable en comparación con los promedios mundiales. El estimado de $4,56 por persona por día significa que 1 de cada 4 personas no puede permitirse una dieta saludable. Por eso en la región, la FAO trabaja por una mejor nutrición, priorizando poner fin al hambre y lograr la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición sin dejar a nadie atrás. La transición hacia dietas saludables y una mejor seguridad alimentaria para los más vulnerables es una prioridad en la región. Trabajemos juntos por la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición para un futuro más brillante.
Cinco claves para entender la ganadería sostenible. América Latina y el Caribe mantiene el 28% de la producción animal global. El sector ganadero se enfrenta a retos complejos como la degradación del medio ambiente, la pérdida de biodiversidad y los efectos de la crisis climática. La demanda mundial de carne, productos lácteos y huevos aumentará 20% al 2050, lo que requerirá abordar desafíos de una producción adaptada a los ecosistemas. La ganadería es vital en los medios de vida del 64,5% de la población rural en América Latina y el Caribe. Además, ocupa el 84,5% del suelo agrícola de la región. En el mundo hay 770 millones de personas que sobreviven con menos de $1,90 por día. Aproximadamente la mitad depende directamente de la ganadería para su sustento. Satisfacer la creciente demanda de proteína de origen animal conservando el medio ambiente requiere prácticas innovadoras y tecnologías que respeten el entorno natural. La ganadería debe avanzar hacia un modelo sostenible implementando prácticas que favorezcan la captura de carbono y la preservación de la biodiversidad, favoreciendo a la par la protección y restauración de los ecosistemas. Es hora de actuar. La actividad ganadera puede contribuir con soluciones integrales a enfrentar el cambio climático, la inseguridad alimentaria o la degradación de los ecosistemas.
Em 2012, a Assembleia General das Nações Unidas proclamou o Ano Internacional das Cooperativas como forma de reconhecer seu papel essencial na economia global e no desenvolvimento sustentável. Em um gesto significativo, además, se ha declarado 2025 como el Año Internacional de las Cooperativas. La FAO ha identificado as cooperativas como aliados clave nessa luta, destacando a importância da agricultura familiar na cadeia agroalimentar. A Oficina Regional da FAO trabalha arduamente na renda cooperativa para transformar os sistemas agroalimentários. Com mais de 3 milhões de cooperativas no mundo e 28 mil na América Latina e el Caribe, o impacto desse modelo é indiscutível. Essas cooperativas reúnem a 6 milhões de cooperados, potenciando o empreendimento, o empoderamento econômico e promovendo o desenvolvimento sustentável e inclusivo. A importância das cooperativas radica em sua capacidade para estimular a governança e o desenvolvimento territorial, sendo motores para a transformação dos sistemas agroalimentários. A FAO ha colaborado com diversas organizações especialistas para apresentar a lei modelo para cooperativas agroalimentárias ante o Latino. Asimismo, com a Aliança Cooperativa Internacional, LACE, celebramos mais de 15 anos de trabalho conjunto, fortalecendo o setor. O futuro da segurança alimentar e o desenvolvimento sustentável em nossa região depende em grande medida do fortalecimento e apoio às cooperativas como parte de uma série de instâncias em las que devemos continuar trabalhando por um futuro melhor para todas e para todos.
Necesitamos una mejor producción para las personas, para el planeta. Durante la última conferencia regional de la FAO celebrada en Georgetown, Guyana, los 33 Estados miembros aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades regionales interconectadas que reflejan las 4 mejoras de la FAO, 4 dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. Nuestra región aporta el 14% de la producción mundial de alimentos. Sin embargo, el 33% de las tierras cultivables están moderada y altamente degradadas, y la pérdida de más del 40% de la producción se relaciona con plagas y enfermedades. La FAO trabaja por una mejor producción en la región, priorizando una producción eficiente, inclusiva y sostenible, donde se necesita abordar integralmente las dimensiones ambiental, económica y social de la producción agropecuaria, forestal, de la pesca y de la acuicultura. Trabajemos juntos hacia una producción sostenible, sin dejar a nadie atrás.
El proyecto Cooperación Sur-Sur, Transformación Digital e Innovación en la Agricultura concluye su implementación con resultados clave que han impulsado la mejora de los medios de vida rurales en América Latina y el Caribe. El proyecto involucró a 12 países de la región: Argentina, Barbados, Chile, Costa Rica, Cuba, Guyana, Jamaica, México, Panamá, Surinam, Trinidad y Tobago y Uruguay. Durante su implementación, hubo un total de 800 personas de áreas rurales que participaron directamente del proyecto, mientras que más de 4.000 se beneficiaron de manera indirecta. Además, se realizaron más de 70 capacitaciones en alfabetización digital, se entregaron más de 400 equipos tecnológicos como tablets, drones y computadores, y se promovió el trabajo colaborativo con más de 50 entidades. Este proyecto, liderado por la Organización de las Naciones Unidas para la Alimentación y la Agricultura, la República Popular China y la Comunidad de Estados Latinoamericanos y Caribeños, ha reflejado el compromiso y la importancia de promover la cooperación entre los países del sur global. También ha demostrado que a través de una transformación digital inclusiva en los sectores rurales es posible alcanzar mejores sistemas agroalimentarios que permitan una mejor producción, una mejor nutrición, un mejor medio ambiente y una vida mejor, sin dejar a nadie atrás.
Trabajemos para lograr un mejor medio ambiente para las personas, para el planeta. Durante la última conferencia regional de la FAO celebrada en Georgetown, Guyana, los 33 Estados miembros aprobaron unánimemente 4 prioridades regionales interconectadas que reflejan las 4 mejoras de la FAO, 4 dimensiones que contribuyen a la transformación de los sistemas agroalimentarios y que guiarán a la organización en América Latina y el Caribe hasta 2026. Los alimentos provienen del suelo y del agua. Sin embargo, la región es particularmente vulnerable al cambio climático y a las malas prácticas a nivel productivo que han generado degradación ambiental. Entre 2008 y 2018, las pérdidas en la producción agrícola relacionadas con desastres climáticos en América Latina y el Caribe se estimaron en $29.000 millones. En 2022, los desastres relacionados con el clima afectaron a 17 países. Si no hoy en la adaptación y mitigación al cambio climático, Para el 2030, más de 3 millones de personas podrían alcanzar la pobreza extrema, en un escenario donde la escasez de agua se agravará. Por eso en la región, la FAO trabaja por un mejor medio ambiente, priorizando la gestión sostenible de los recursos de la tierra, los suelos, el agua y la adaptación al cambio climático. En esa labor, también es clave el resguardo de la biodiversidad para lograr el equilibrio ecológico en los ecosistemas, garantizar la diversidad de alimentos y resguardar la cultura de las poblaciones con entornos ambientalmente sanos. A nivel urbano, las ciudades verdes y los centros de distribución de alimentos con reducción de huella ambiental, incluyendo energía y agua, también son clave. A través de la prioridad regional, se busca proteger, restaurar y promover el uso sostenible de los ecosistemas terrestres, acuáticos y marinos y luchar contra el cambio climático. Trabajemos juntos hacia sistemas alimentarios resilientes para un futuro más sostenible.
Me sacó de agua con los agricultores porque nos dieron una semilla que sí les digo, si no hubiera sido la semilla que me dio el ingeniero, el agrónomo Soto 60, pues hubiéramos perdido, porque yo sembré más de manzana, un cuarto, y solo pude sacar 16 poquitos, y fue una barbaridad que le invertí. Al final, con la semilla que él me dio, se admiró, y he tenido la bondad de regalar, porque debemos de compartir lo poco que se tiene, pues compartirlo con los demás, porque no esperar, porque este año que pasó fue una experiencia para los agricultores. Tiempo de sembrar y no teníamos la semilla. Ahora con una nueva semilla quizás nos va a beneficiar mejor, porque sembramos a la hora que nosotros queremos. Así es que para mí ha sido una experiencia más, y para todos los que hemos podido repartir las semillas también va a ser otra experiencia más. El tiempo de la que le llamamos el huracán Julia, yo, como le digo, descontroladamente todas las milpas las vi en el suelo. Y ahí me vine a ver y vi que la mía, el pedazo de maíz, no lo había botado. Y ahí todito estaba, y resistente al viento y al tiempo de...
Con un espacio de diálogo para preguntas y comentarios de quienes nos acompañan en este salón. Para dar inicio entonces a la ronda de saludos.
So we will start greeting our participants. I would like to invite Máximo Guerrero, who is a FAO Chief Economist and Regional Deputy Director and Regional Representative for Latin America and the Caribbean, to give us some welcoming remarks.
Buenas, muchísimas gracias a todos.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Mrs. Ignacia Fernandez, Ministry of Agriculture, Marco Linas, We would like to greet you as well. Mr. Carlos Reuter, President of the Commission, Deputy from Uruguay, Santiago Borja, Director of the Institute in Chile. We want to thank the presence of former Director of FAO. It's a pleasure to see you here with us. So, dear participants, for me it's an honor to welcome you to the Regional Office of FAO to continue the dialogue that we started yesterday as part of the second International Day of the Cooperatives. Today we will talk about the role of the cooperatives in the transformation of the agro-food systems in Latin America and the Caribbean. This transformation doesn't mean only to change or improve. Transform means redesign what we currently have so it can be more fair, sustainable. But we need to learn from what is working properly. We need to replicate what's working well and to do any adjustments when needed. In the last years, the region has shown promising examples. We see a slight reduction of the food insecurity. It's the only region with such a trend worldwide. However, this progress is still not enough, and it's really unequal. We still see the gaps, especially in the rural areas. We see that 6.2% of the population is being impacted by hunger. Latin America and Caribbean has the highest cost of a healthy diet. $4.56 is the cost per day per person. This number shows that even though we're producing food, access and affordability are still critical barriers for many people. What we know is that we're improving and we will be going in such path. In July, we will show that the region is still improving. And as I have said before, it's one of the few regions worldwide that will be able to reach HCSDG2. And for that, we need to speed up the best practices and to use as well as possible the resources that we do have in the region so we can move out of hunger. The food systems are exposed and the challenges are many. We see the impact on the soil, that we have an impact on productivity. We see the impact of the climate. We will see more climate events. We also have the conflicts, and on the other hand, we have new microeconomic issues that force us to face the uncertainty. This will have an impact not only on availability, but also on access of food and the capacity to pay for them. In our region, our goal is to reduce the cost of a healthy diet so more people in our region will have access to such diet. So as part of this context, the cooperatives could help us so we can have better access to insurances and markets. And these are key topics. The insurance market is not well developed worldwide, especially if we want to include the small farmers. The big insurance have a lot of subsidies, and if we don't have the resources for those subsidies, that's a problem. So we need to have the scale and the data, and that's how FAO plays an important role. And if we do that, we will have access to this climate insurance, and as a result, we will have better funding. If the agriculture is impacted by climate change, but if we do have an insurance for such, the finance system will reduce the risk, and as a result, we will have better finance access to small farmers. As for family agriculture, this is important for food production, and cooperatives play an important role. They can offer better conditions, shared services, technical training,
Ese problema de comer antes de venir.
That's the problem of having lunch before giving a speech. So better conditions, better technical training, and shared services. And that's how we can work and have these public goods. As I said yesterday, we want to allow the small farmers that are part of an association to have, for instance, precision agriculture. Let's think about precision agriculture. That means to use in the best way possible the supplies. And those who face the bigger issue when it comes to having access to budget are the small farmers. Who are those who have access to the information about soil? The big farmers. But those goods are something that we can produce together, and that's why we need to work together. And we need the scale, so we have this service as a public good for the small farmers so they can develop the precision agriculture, which is key, instead of being excluded from it. In FAO, we are creating data through different tools. We are offering digital solutions as well. And in that way, they can be used by small farmers. Just to provide an example, we launched FLAPP, which is Food Loss app, to show the waste as part of the
renewed this MOU after many years with collaboration, as well to highlight that I think is, let's say we are partners. We have been always partners. So this is nothing new since we started to work completely together. So it's really an honor. There's an MOU that has been signed, but it was promoted on this region. So this is thanks to our work in the region. But part of this, I would like to highlight that our collaboration is based on resolution defined by the second year of the cooperatives, because the resolution of May 2024, not only that, but what we promoted that resolution 2023 acknowledges the outcomes. And also, furthermore, it's also the efforts of FAO in promoting the cooperatives, to understanding the role of the operatives to increase the food safety and nutrition in the rural areas through building, capacity building, access to the market and access to credits, and also the insurance technology. So these are sustainable food systems. These partners mentioned by the people who are behind this decision produce outcomes that are very important. And also nowadays we can benefit as a second international year. So we have already mentioned that the Regional Committee of the Parts created to coordinate in the Americas, which is based on 7 agencies, 2 intergovernmental also entities, and also that have Pablo Urrul in its board as board members. And we're going to debate in the afternoon, and also the 9 governments structuring the cooperatives. That's why this partnership is fed from different perspectives. The chief economist has referred recently to the role of cooperativism to really be a fair, efficient role, to have that role. And also he highlighted that our cooperation can be measured in the added value that we contribute to the transformation of food, meaning what is produced not only is going to be exported, but it's also transformed with innovation and quality, arriving to the household and national households to reduce the cost of the diet already mentioned, and to also mitigate another cost that we have in our region, which is the health cost, because if only it's exported, we will not reduce the cost of the diet, and we will continue consuming ultra-processed food imported that we don't know where it come from. That in terms of health has very important impact. And what happens is this is going to be mentioned throughout the day, because we have to talk about the healthcare sector also. And in Brazil, they consider that very clearly, the food security also, and the reduction of obesity. Now, I had the opportunity to visit other parts of the world. The cooperativism in the region is a comparative advantage, because we can identify to mobilize not only resources, because it's done in many countries to really leverage efforts and resources to finance national agendas. And also to seek these solutions that can be obviously with our support, but we really need also the support and articulation of you, all of you, from the FAO also, because you have the methodology. You know how to rub to the governments. You identify niches or different sectors, for example, the precision agriculture. And furthermore, with the hand-in-hand initiative that has a wonderful initiative, and we can see that this can be applied in other initiatives that are similar, like cooperatives, transforming a food security integrating distribution project that added value, social and nutritional value, supporting the financial instructions. These are necessary. For example, in Guatemala, you can see the representatives. And really, this is important in our cooperative movement. They're doing wonderful projects. And also in Brazil, Just to give you an example, in Brazil, where according to the census of 2017, regarding this, 75% of the corn process is, and also the coffee, then the soy, and the OCB, which is our Brazilian organization, will present in the COP30 a manifesto that puts in the first place how a cooperative can contribute to the food security to improve low carbon processes and the forestry code to protect the natural resources. Therefore, together we have done this mapping. This is going to be presented, and we all know that we have 14,000 cooperatives in the region that associate more than 3 million people. And if we multiply 3 for the minimum average of the households, we have an exponential number. But there's a new dimension, which is care. Care in the household and rural care. This leads us to think about maybe new actions and to consolidate the older actions. And also, we are going to contribute to identify many things. So thank you very much for being here today, and thank you very much for listening to us today. Thank you so much.
Agradecemos las palabras
We
de
would like to
don
thank Mr. Danilo Salerno, and now we would like to invite Marco Ginás, who is the director of the Productive Development Division of ECLAC.
Bueno, muy buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everyone. I hope that after the lessons of Cueca yesterday, I'm sure you are Cueca expert dancers.
Como mencionamos ayer, desde CEPAL
As we
venimos
said
planteando
yesterday, in ECLAC, we've been saying that Latin America and the Caribbean are trapped in a low capacity trap to grow. And behind that trap is the productivity that it's been almost stagnated and even reducing over the last decades. The agriculture sector in Latin America and the Caribbean is not far from that reality. In the last decade, the productivity growth rate has been going even lower than those of the 80s. Many of these productivity numbers were shared by Máximo Toledo. However, we see that we are not talking about the productivity when we work on regional agendas or multilateral agendas in this sector. In order to move out of this trap, in ECLAC we've been highlighting that the territories should improve their productive policies. Now they need to have a new vision for such policies. Yesterday, I mentioned some of these elements that are part of this new vision, but please allow me to repeat the information. We see these policies as efforts that aim at the transformation of our economies as the vehicle to improve productivity. With such wide definition and different from industrial policies that are still a trend worldwide, the productive policies that we foster could include any sector of the economy and not only the industrial sector and manufacturing one. Therefore, these policies could and should include the food sector and the agriculture and livestock sector. Many countries include this sector as one of the strategic sectors as part of their productive policies. That's the case of Colombia with the reindustrialization policy. Brazil, it's another example with the new industry and the new industrial policy. And Mexico with the Mexico Plan, which was recently launched. We see these policies as efforts that should be part of the collaboration among different players from the public, private, and academia sectors so we can reduce the bottlenecks so we can work in strategic agendas that will promote this type of transformation. The governance becomes a key element. Therefore, different from industrial policies that have been implemented for many countries as the United States, European Union, and China that are just done through tariffs and subsidies, the productive policies that we are fostering put governance and not subsidies ahead. We also understand that an important part of the action when it comes to productive development needs to be done locally. In other words, at a subnational level in the territories with the local players. And that's why we want to stress the importance of the productivity that needs to be done locally. In addition to that, we think that an effective manner to organize the efforts when it comes to productive development that includes the governance with different actors at the cluster initiatives. And as part of this context, the cooperatives, and especially the agriculture cooperatives, are being called to play a more leading role in the policies of our countries and their territories. The cooperativism is something that is key when it comes to the implementation of such policies. Cooperatives play a key role in the promotion of productive and sustainable agriculture practices. Cooperatives promote social innovation and an inclusive governance. Cooperatives, they really play a key role when it comes to the territorial and rural development. We need to keep on talking about productivity and need to include that topic in our agendas for the agriculture development. We need to escalate the policies that need to include the sector. Our challenge is to find concrete ways through which the cooperatives could be engaged. I hope that the workshop of today will shed some light in such direction. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, señorías. Y para cerrar esta ronda de apertura, invito a tomar la palabra a la señora Ignacia Fernández, ministra de Agricultura subrogante del Gobierno de Chile.
Muchas gracias, muy buenos días a todos y a todas. Es un honor para mí poder estar aquí esta mañana a nombre del gobierno del presidente Boric en la inauguración de este evento sobre cooperativismo y sistemas agroalimentarios. Quisiera partir por saludar muy afectuosamente a todas las autoridades presentes de la FAO, ex autoridades de FAO también, CEPAL, de la Alianza Cooperativa Internacional, los representantes de gremios, de cooperativas, de gobiernos hermanos, de organismos multilaterales, de la sociedad civil, que hoy día nos acompañan y que ayer también han estado acompañando las distintas discusiones en torno a este tema tan sensible y relevante para las estrategias y las agendas de desarrollo.
This is such an important topic for the development of policies of the countries within the region. I would like to thank for this opportunity, and I'm really glad to see that this has been held in Chile in a moment in which Latin America and the Caribbean needs to move forward. These agri-food systems should be more resilient, more inclusive, and more sustainable. The agri-food cooperatives are a great example of economic democracy, and they are a clear example of opportunities. And I would like to talk about the context in which these challenges are clear and the opportunities that the cooperativism offers.
In climate crisis, inequality, where we do believe and we are convinced that the cooperatives are really a key actor, because we need a transformation of the food security systems, and through different mechanisms that enable us to contribute and take charge of the problems that we have already mentioned. An actor that not only produces food but also produces community, cohesion and justice, social justice and territorial justice. The Ministry of Agriculture from Chile, we do believe that to strengthen these cooperatives is a way to be able to advance in our agenda, in the commitment that we have defined in sovereignty and food security, and to do it really in the rural areas, in the indigenous areas, territories. But also we do value, we acknowledge, and we will also contribute to the fact of the role and the potential of the market, of the business, of protection against the risks that the economic activity has in the cooperative sector. We have seen many experiences in which the fact of being as a cooperative will generate better conditions for exchange, better conditions for participation. The market is many times very complex and competitive. So we really give an example of these cooperatives to add as their own experiences, understanding that there are many resistances and many difficulties to be part of these processes. That's why the government of President Governor has promoted very specific policies to recover decades of stagnation or setbacks, and maybe that are not enough value to the importance and the impact that the cooperatives may have faced with the challenges that we are facing today. In this sense was the creation of the National Institute of Associations and Cooperatives, that would be INAC. Without a doubt, for the process is to strengthening the cooperatives in Chile has a very important landmark during the past 50 years. The vision of INAC, National Institute of Cooperativism, to give technical assistance to strengthen the cooperatives, especially cooperatives of the first and second tier, understand that base cooperative has a very close role with each of the productive sectors, with which is related to. From our Ministry of Agriculture, we have aligned different instruments and initiatives around this commitment and this invitation given by the President Boric. We created, together with the Ministry of Science and the Fundación for Innovación here in Chile, the program AgroCop Innova. The government, 50 cooperatives with added value and training in the territory. We were going to include new cooperatives in the future. Through the Institute of Development, pretty sure the director, Santiago Rojas, here today can really talk about this aspect, what I'm going to mention, but I think it's relevant to mention that we have invested more than $2 million per year in the programs of the PAI to support the development of peasant associations, and also the risk associations also gives more than $10 million per year with programs that are mentioned to be able to promote these cooperative companies. And the most strategic aspect, since the work of Yodepa from the Department of Rural Development, I'm not seeing here the director. Oh, here, there you are. So we have a national plan to promote cooperativism, agro-food cooperatives, articulating all the services that I already mentioned and many other services of the ministry, enabling us to act with a coherence, scale, and participation of the services and the cooperatives in actions, specific actions facing the development of the strengthening the sector. Inside this plan, in 2023, we defined a technical committee, private committee. There participates the guilds, the academia, also the public services, in a way that to transform the space so we can identify barriers and also to design solutions and to build an agenda, a shared agenda with the development of the sector of the cooperatives. I would also like to highlight also the efforts that the cooperativism has. Many times in Chile, without a doubt, the women in the rural areas, many women find the cooperatives an autonomy to lead in their economies and to organization of care. This is very important. That's why we're promoting through other strategic priorities from the Boric president is a care national strategy. The possibility that the cooperatives really can be articulated with this care system so that through local experiences and pilot projects, there will be space for the women who care so they can be part of this system to be able to bring their own knowledge towards the service of these national centers and the community centers and to bring all the experiences in the cooperative world. Also promoting the cooperativism with a gender focus is not only a social demand, but we are convinced that under necessary conditions, these are very important for sustainability of the cooperative system and also the agricultural and livelihood system. So we are going to also discuss many important topics during this agenda, and I would like to congratulate specifically the initiative of FAO and to be able to advance towards a model law for the region and to highlight that from Chile, we are available to contribute with our experience and to promote a framework to protect the cooperative identity so it can modernize the laws and to generate enabling situations for its own development throughout the territories, not only of those who have better conditions and capacities to be able to advance in this agenda and leaving stagnated the rest, where we want to give this power to the rest. So therefore, we would like to call for an action. We need to have a diagnosis, we need information, we need more data, but furthermore, we need political will and also finance and normative frameworks that we will discuss during the day to be able to advance the development of the sector, understanding that the cooperatives are not only part of the solution, but we are a key role in the rural agenda, which is going to be sustainable and fair for Latin America. So this is what our region needs, and thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Agradecemos entonces las palabras de la
señora Mrs. Our Ministry, and we would like to welcome some of the authorities that are here with us today. Mr. Graciano da Silva, former General of FAO, and he is a professor from the University of Campinas, UNICAP. Deputy Carlos Reota, President of the Commission, and we would like to greet Soledad Valdez, National Director of the Chilean Program for Agriculture. We would like to invite you to stand up. We're going to take a picture of the group, so please, everyone, stand up.
Muchas gracias. Les invitamos a tomar asiento nuevamente.
Could you please take your seats again? So moving on with our agenda, now we're going to have our presentations and our session for feedback. I would like to invite the representative from FAO. I would like to invite to the stage Maya Takagi, Mr. Carlos González, Mr. Douglas, and our commentators, Mr. Santiago Rojas, Agustin Mariano, and Mrs. Simona Cavasuti.
Hola, hola, aló. Aquí puede ser. Bueno, las mujeres en el centro finalmente. Buenos días a todas y a todos.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you. Now we're going to have our session just to have some food for thought. We saw so many experiences yesterday at ECLAC place. We talked about power, consumption, saving, and loans that have a lot to do with the rural sector. However, today we are here to talk about the agriculture and livestock cooperatives. And the whole idea for this session is to deep dive and to talk about the agriculture livestock cooperatives in our region. The whole idea is to understand whether or not we're doing well despite everything, or we need to make any adjustments.
Y para eso vamos escuchar tres presentaciones.
And we will have today 3 presentations, and then we will have some commentators who will make some remarks. The first presentation that we have today will be done by Maya Takaya, who is the Regional Program Leader for the Regional Office of FAO. She will talk about the role of the cooperatives in the agri-food systems in our region. We are kind of lagging behind a little bit, so just for you to know, I will be very strict with the time, so instead of 10 minutes, you will have 8 minutes for your presentation. Thank you very much.
Me avisen si falta los 3 minutos. Bueno, muy rápidamente, como me pidió Duca.
So, very quickly, as Duca asked me to, I'm going to give you an overview about what agri-food systems mean and what is this concept all about. Well, first of all, we usually talk about agriculture sector, which is the one that you see within the red box. We talk mainly about production, either of crops, livestock, forestry, fishery, or aquaculture. That's the agriculture part. However, when we talk about agri-food systems, now we need to not only talk about primary production, we need to talk also about processing. The cooperatives are involved not only in the primary production, but also in the processing. This is something that we discussed yesterday when we talk about milk production and the production of many other processed products, and how is it that this food is being produced and distributed. It's not enough to have the production if you are not able to reach the consumers. And consumption is really important. It's also part of the agri-food system as well. When we talk about the system, sometimes we forget about the waste. What is it that we do with that? And that's why we need to think about what we do with the waste, and that's been impacted by the economic, societal, and natural environments. When we talk about agri-food, we are talking about not only food production, but also we're talking about non-food agriculture products, and that's the case of fuels or, for instance, products made out of wood. What you see on the screen is just a snapshot, a static idea of what's going on. Now you can have a different approach, a more systemic one. This should work as a system that has some entry points, some input and some outputs. For instance, we need to think about the natural resources that have been used, the water that is being used, and the biodiversity. And when it comes to the ecosystems, this is part of the output. And the other thing that we need to keep in mind is also the emissions, and this is something that is part of the environmental part. When it comes to human capital, we need to think about employment. These are some of the positive results, but on the other hand, we need to think about the risks, like inequality or a bad management of manpower or working conditions. In the agri-food system, unfortunately, we may not have the best working conditions. The other thing is that we use the cultural knowledge of the population and offers the opportunities for the communities to work together. We also need to think about digitalization, the technology that is being used, and as a result, we're able to produce products that could be even exported. On the top, you see the drivers or the mechanisms that allow for this transformation. For instance, the inclusive support and access to innovation, to services, to finance, technical assistance. Also, we need to think about food safety. These are all the links of this chain, and also the regulation, standards, and relation among people. So if the idea is to transform, we need to keep in mind all the interrelation among all those elements, not only the positive ones, but also the negative ones. As part of this systemic approach, we need to look to the contribution made by the agriculture to all the SDGs. As part of the UN framework, we have 6 transitions that are drivers that will allow us to reach the SDGs, and agri-food systems is one of them. So as part of this system, we need to look not only to the environmental component or the governance, we also need to think about how we can preserve the tradition, the age, religion, and socio-economical status.
Aquí reforzando lo que mencionó Máximo Torero, ¿no? Sí, una región, estamos en una región que puede
we are in a region that could reach zero hunger. And what we see on the screen is what doesn't allow us to reach such goal. Pandemic was a difficult time. Words that are affecting all the regions, and the fact that the cost of a healthy diet is the highest.
Is
an example of the partnerships that we have. policies that we need for such transformation and how these transforming partnerships are so key. And the cooperatives is a great example of such. I would like to stress the importance of working with the cooperatives. The reasons are the ones that you see here. Just wanted to stress the importance of promoting economic and social inclusion, to promote transparency as well, so we can have a horizontal relation instead of a vertical one. We want to foster the capacity of small farmers, especially micro and small and medium enterprises. We need to and the modernization of the supply chain. Also, they offer complementary services to the community, and they need to include the sustainable part of it. I will skip some of these slides because you do have a presentation. Daniela said that we've been working for many years, and what you see here on the screen are some of the milestones since 2012. We work on the first International Year of the Cooperatives, and now we are celebrating the second year of cooperatives. You see here on the screen the different milestones. And here you see lessons learned, best practices. All these will be available to you all. FAO is willing to keep on working with the cooperatives of the Americas through this MOU that we signed last year. And what we are aiming at is to recognize the value of the cooperatives on the transformation of the agri-food systems. We want to give the visibility of this model. We need to understand the realities and the reality of the different cooperatives so we can have better regulation framework and better policies so we can keep on moving forward to a situation in which we have zero hunger, thanks to the help of all of you. Thanks, Maya, for your presentation. To your presentation. This is Douglas Bárcenas, who is the Peruvian director of the NCBA CLUSA, and he will present the different incentives to strengthen cooperativism in our region. Douglas, you have 8 minutes to do your presentation.
Quizá primero explicar quién es NSBA CLUSA.
Somos I would like to explain what we do.
Nacida en 1916, tenemos 109 años de
We
existencia.
have 109 years of existence. Since the 70s, we're known as the National Association of Cooperatives in the United States. Our initiative is Clarity, the one I'm going to talk about today.
Okay. Sí. Okay. Clarity es una iniciativa.
Clarity
para la regulación
is an initiative for the regulation and for the cooperative right.
Me voy a detener ahí. Nosotros, como NSBA CLUSA, somos representantes del sector cooperativo.
We represent the cooperative sector before focus on increasing the productivity and expanding the trade of agri-food products. In the beginning of 2000, we started with this initiative called Clarity. Clarity is an initiative of 8 organizations of cooperative development in the U.S.
Las otras 7 son miembros de
NSR
como
organizations
de los Estados Unidos de América y con la necesidad
work together, and what we aim at is to implement everything we've learned during 80 years in the United States. And we want to implement this through these development projects in developing countries. And what we do is to assess the cooperative laws in our countries in order to promote legal reforms that setting that will enable the cooperative development. So this is what this initiative is all about. The 2 main objectives to support the cooperatives in the analysis and transformation of legal and regulatory setting, and to create a setting that will allow the flourishing of the cooperatives. We started in Nicaragua with the implementation of such initiative. That was one of the first countries in which we implement this initiative. In Latin America, we've worked in Dominican Republic, in Guatemala, Nicaragua, Ecuador, and also in Peru. We've developed this initiative in 18 countries globally, most of them in the African continent. NCBA CLUSA has worked in Guatemala, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Peru, and Dominican Republic in the initiatives that you see on the screen.
Okay. En 2004
in 2004,
me da el honor de ser parte de ese grupo de trabajo que iniciamos allá a principios de
part of this working group that started working in 2000. In 2004, we launched the initiative. In 2006 and 2007, we did the implementation in Mozambique and Nicaragua. In 2014, we created a final report of the implementation of such tool. From 2018 until 2023, we keep on working on the implementation of these programs in Guatemala, Peru, Ecuador, Kenya, Tanzania, and Madagascar.
When we saw these 18 countries implemented by Clarity, these are the 8 organizations of corporate development in the United States which have implemented. What I'm presenting today is the initiatives that NCBA CLUSA has presented in Guatemala, Peru, Ecuador, Tanzania, and Madagascar. Afterwards, we retake with all the experience in 2021 with an initiative, the experiences that we have. We also created Clarity 2.0 as a working group with development sessions for cooperatives, and we reviewed and created a new toolkit related to the analysis and the promotion of reforms for the cooperative laws of the countries where we're working. So we did the pilot test in Dominican Republic, and based on that pilot test, we start in 2023 to promote the revision through these toolkit of other laws, like could be in Ecuador and Madagascar. And also in 2025, at the beginning of this year, it's approved the new law updated in Tanzania, also using these toolkits from Clarity.
El primero es el diagnóstico, que es
The first one is the diagnosis, which is the initial report of 2004, where we did the initiative. The second one would be an assessment to analyze the consensus regarding the reform that we did in Nicaragua and the manual of the proposals of political advocacy, and finally the implementation of political advocacy and proposals of the reform. So this is part of the tools that we have right now. You can see we have some reports already and the processes that we have done up till now and some of the experiences that we still have. All this information can be seen in our website. Here we have all the toolkit and the contacts. If you are interested in getting to know a little bit more about this toolkit, if you have any other questions, we can do that later on in the panel.
Después del panel, en el break, podemos también hablar sobre.
In the break, we can talk about these things I have already mentioned. Thank you so much, Douglas. Questions or any comments, you can write them down because we will have a session for a Q&A session. So the idea is for you to participate. So let us continue with the next presentation. It's going to be an 8-minute presentation. Let's invite Carlos González. Carlos, welcome. Carlos is the program coordinator of the Cooperative of the Americas. He's going to present the mapping, statistics on agricultural cooperatives in the Americas. It's under development, right, Carlos? So he's going to present the process of this mapping. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning to you all.
Con la presentación.
Let's continue with my presentation. So, before I start, as a Cooperative of the Americas, always that we participate in any activities and we are the voice of cooperativism in the region, there's always that expectation that we need to bring data that we can present. How many are we? What do we do? What is the impact that we're having? But we are facing a reality which is a very different one in all the countries, where, for example, in some nations like in Brazil, we have data that's very updated, very precise data, but maybe other countries don't have that precise data, honestly speaking. So there is the need in the cooperative sector to be able to what we do and what is the impact that we are having. To have a very important role when we talk about the cooperatives. There was a publishing done with the FAO. Now we are in a second year, International Year. So we want not only to describe it qualitative-wise, but quantitative-wise too. So this initiative of the mapping was born initially from that request, constant request on behalf of the sectorial sector of REDACOP, so that we really can understand how many agricultural cooperatives we have in the region. So there's a project that was born of ASI that offers, which would be the International Cooperative Alliances, to present all the projects. From then on, the REDACOP, together with their Cooperative, the Americas, leads the initiative to present a project. One of these activities is to organize a mapping of the agricultural and livestock cooperatives. This was approved by ICAO, and we are in the execution of this process. And inside this huge reality that we have, the diversity, the situations of the states, of the statistics in the different countries, that's why we reached FAO and we reached also the ECLAC to be able to, among the three actors, to start to collect all the information. Fortunately, both agencies have opened their doors to us, and not only the doors, but also windows and everything. They've opened everything, all the access and all the resources that they have to be able to do the mapping that we need. So very quickly, what is our objective? Really, to understand who are we, what we do, and how many are we? That process includes a revision of many documents, a digital survey through FAO, and also ECLAC. We have also had direct contact with the governments and also Cooperative of the Americas with all the national institutes to be able to access all the information that is there available. And in these extreme cases, at least to have many interviews with actors, well-informed actors, to have really much more access to the situation of the cooperatives nowadays. Regarding the main contents of the survey, we divide that in three, the mapping, and we wanted to really understand the integration which is among all the cooperatives, the role that the cooperatives have in consumption, and also how we already mentioned the role of the care cooperatives. And this also has to work under, let's say, some established limits given by the legislation. So to understand the state of the legislation in each of the countries in which the cooperatives need to work, what they are enabled to do, what they can do and cannot do. This is part of the research. In general sense, we still have the data. Afterwards, we can give you much more information per country. And we also have more than 100 cooperatives coming from all the sectors in the Americas. Around 431 million total members. I would like to just to say that regarding amount of members and partners and total of cooperatives, cooperativists. This is different because the information comes and stems from the cooperative. So one person who is a partner of 3 or 4 or 5 cooperatives, you can see that's a multiplying effect. So the idea is, how can we really measure how many cooperative members exist is through national census. Here we have a huge process of advocacy that Cooperative of the Americas is working upon with the OIT to be able to, in each of the national census, can be included these types of questions to really understand what is the real amount. The data that we have up till now is total memberships of the people who are members of the cooperatives. This is the cooperatives for more than 15,000, around 4 million members of these cooperatives, and more than 1 million workers in these food and agricultural cooperatives. So this is the clear data, precise one. Some graphs that can really show us something very interesting. We can see the countries divided in 3 main sectors. Here we can see Cuba, Jamaica, Honduras, and Peru on the lower part of the graph, where we have a larger percentage of agricultural cooperatives compared to the total cooperatives. We have the difference, for example, with Uruguay, Argentina, United States, Canada, and Mexico, which is where the percentage is a little bit lower. Here, from the analysis that we are doing, we are on this process analyzing the information. The idea is to see what is the relationship that exists, which is the real reason to understand these dynamics. We have 3 very defined groups. The larger groups, middle groups and the lower percentage groups with around 5%. So we want to analyze why this is done and what is the reason behind it. We also have the percentage of members of the agricultural cooperatives compared to the total of members. We see very interesting cases like in Ecuador and Panama, where we can see a very ample of members compared to the rest of the memberships. If we go back and see in detail, Panama and Ecuador do not have as many cooperatives regarding, like example, Brazil or Salvador, which the amount of cooperatives is very, very high. So here's when we see these analysis, in which countries do we have much more cooperatives but less members, and in other the other way around. And finally, the percentage of partners compared to the population. What I wanted to show here is the data of Salvador, a country which we see in the total population, there are a lot of members in the cooperatives. The rest are around the similar percentages. As I said, we had two sections, the quantities and also consumption. I'm not going to enter into detail due to the lack of time, but we can discuss that in the panels to give us a broader idea. So the idea of the role of the consumption cooperatives, what they have to be able to promote the agri-food cooperatives, to really contribute to the processes of the chain, that we don't have 25 intermediates among the cooperative that produced and the final consumer. But the idea is that the consumption cooperatives can give us that platform so that we can have that shorter chain, and these intermediation margins really will stay in the producers and the consumption cooperatives. We have a case here, but we still have a lot more in the region. We also have all the cooperatives and care cooperatives. So this is complementary job being done currently, and mainly due to the fact that in the agri-food cooperatives, it's a sector in which really we need to be in the field, in the territory. It's not a sector that we can say, okay, we'll do virtual working and I'm at home taking care of somebody else. No, I need to be in the territory. So this sector is very important. The care sector is very important, so that those people can bring some input to their households and that they don't have the responsibility of not being able to develop their economic activity because they have to take care of another person. We can discuss many other cases, so I'll take advantage of these few seconds to give you a summarize. We see heterogeneous realities in all the countries. The most important thing and the conclusion that we want to arrive in the study is why? Why? Because we need national legislations that really can be adapted to the conditions of the country. That's why, together with FAO and with Parlatino, it's been approved, the ley model law for the cooperatives. And we have, in this analysis that we've done with legislations, there are countries that have legislations from 60 years back on. So how applicable are they to the current situations of the agri-food cooperatives? That's why we have this model law, so that the countries that want to update their legislations can really collect all the information to present a new proposal. And also the role of the public institutions and confederations, so we can have databases that are updated. If we really want to have political advocacy and to show the impact of the cooperatives, we need data, because without data, we cannot show really the impact that we're having as cooperatives. Next steps. During this year, we're going to finalize the analysis of the study that we are doing, and we are going to have some workshops to present some of the outcomes, to give, also it's important your feedback, so at the end of the year, we can together present all the information in the International Day in Panama. Thank you so much. Thank you. gave us a very real and precise overview of the study. There's a lot of data that is coming in, and we have suffered collecting all the data, right, Carlos? And this shows really that the countries still have difficulties to systematize and to find the statistics related to the cooperative movement. So we will stop now with the presentations. I would like to invite 3 commentators to share your reflections regarding what has been already presented. Maya had to leave the room, but I believe she will come back. So I will start with the colleagues that are here. First and foremost, Santiago. I'd like to hand you the floor, who is the National Director of the Chile's Institute for Agricultural Development, INDAP. INDAP is linked to the Ministry of Agriculture and is an institution which is dedicated to promote the economic, social, and technological development of the producers, agricultural producers. So Santiago, welcome and thank you very much for being here. You have 5 minutes. Thank you very much for the invitation. In fact, I would like to congratulate all the cooperative movement from Chile and Latin America that organized this so well, the support of ASI, CLAC, FAO, the governments, the commitment also of President Boric with the agenda. So, as already mentioned, the ministry also, it's very important in that the cooperativism was a desire in the sector. We need to strengthen it, but it's very important. The role of cooperatives in the transformation of the agriculture and agri-food sector is very interesting, your presentations, to highlight first and foremost what Maya was mentioning, how the cooperatives can be able to level up the field in this production supply process, which is so unbalanced in Chile. But in the rest of the Latin America and Caribbean, to compete with the agro-industry is very difficult. So we need to try for the smallholders, indigenous smallholders, association and cooperativism are effective tools to be able to level up the field for the trade. And Maya mentioned this very clearly. And this invitation is there to be able to do transformative changes in the workplace among all the actors and multilateral organizations as well. On the other hand, Douglas' work was very interesting. He presented it very clearly because in all the countries we have all these challenges, regulatory, legal frameworks, and we are seeing, and yesterday during the opening session of this agenda, the Ministry of Economy of Chile mentioned there was a pending challenge, and we're advancing because if a person wants to create a company, it can do it one day, but to create a cooperative or to modify it is very difficult. So there's a space that we have to approach, and mentioned by the ministry that they're working upon this aspect, how to really do a digital COP, to do a COP in one day. That's a very important aspect and space of possibilities that we can work upon. On the other hand, Carlos also showed, I can see that's very interesting, but the most interesting thing is that we are still lacking information, that the countries, we need to advance and to commit to have much more information that should be transparent, access to information, access to the universities, all the actors of the cooperative the sector, not only how many people are there, but what's really happening with the dynamic of the cooperatives, of the what's happening. We can see a picture, what has changed, what has grown really, what are the cooperatives that are successful, what are the factors that make an impact, and this can help us to improve public policies.
I would like to share with you what we do in INDAP. We work with the cooperatives that we have in the country, and we work with about 385 cooperatives in the country, about 65%. And it's really interesting to see new cooperatives. Since the government started, we see 20% increase with 70 new cooperatives. We worked with credit loans with a budget of more than $2 million as the ministry said. So access to funding is important. When the cooperatives want to reach the banks, that's one of the struggles they have. And this is one of the great contributions. We have copied something from Brazil, which is how we can move forward on public procurement. And we see that the role of the associations is great. And today we see many cooperatives and associations that are selling to the public schools in our country. Lastly, one of the challenges we face is to modernize the programs that we have in INDAP. We want to review the programs for the associations, and how is it that we have further information about the cooperatives that work with INDAP. And this is what one of the areas of our entity is doing. I would like to thank all the cooperatives that I see here with us today, the cooperatives from our country. Thank you very much, Santiago. So you use your 5 minutes. This is a great example of what Chile has done in the last years. We have someone else from Chile as well. We have Agustín Mariano, who is the president of Campo Coop, National Confederation of Federations of Cooperatives and Associations in Chile, that was created in December 1969. This is the data that I have. It's really interesting. It was created 7 years after INDAP was created. I don't know if there's any relation between those two, but that's when these two important institutions were created in Chile. You do have 5 minutes, Agustín, to make your comments about the presentations that were done today. Well, first of all, I would like to thank the presence of the different players here. We see the representatives of the cooperative, national sector, and also would like to thank the authorities that we have with us today. Well, Campo Coop, it's an institution, just for you to know, it's an institution that was created in 1969 when the agriculture reform was about to be launched. And many other institutions were created back then, like INDAP. And since then, and after what happened back in the 60s, we've been defending the interests of our producers who are part of the cooperatives and who are members of our federation. I think that what was presented today by the different speakers is a great example of data, and it shows the context that we face in the region. Our realities are different. The countries have different realities. I had the pleasure to be able to visit Peru and see how the cooperatives work. We do have here friends from the cooperatives in Uruguay, and we see also a great development in Paraguay when it comes to cooperatives. Now, talking about Chile, I think that we've been a great player, and this has been possible thanks to the help of our cooperatives, but also because the government is helping us. In the last 3 years, and I've said this before, we've made progress. We were able to work on our dreams. And I just wanted to make an acknowledgement of the Ministry of Agriculture. FIA, for instance, is a service in which we can take our cooperatives so we can improve their governance. We want the members to be able to know what their rights and duties are. And we also want to be able to have a project in which we can work around innovation and technologies that we can use towards our development, which will therefore allow us greater production and greater income, which will help us also on our contribution for our country. So I would like to recognize as well the willingness to learn from our members of the cooperatives. And this is a program that we won't forget. It's a program that we need to keep on fostering. Today, we have about 65 cooperatives in the 4 years since we started, and our members will learn a lot. We have experiences in which cooperatives were working alone. They didn't know what was going on their surroundings, and that's why we need to look at the cooperatives as companies within the rural area. For instance, some people talk about poverty and how is it that we can reduce the poverty in those areas. We are responsible to produce food as well, not only for our people, not only for those who are around us. The family agriculture led by the cooperatives are lucky and they're able to sell their products abroad. So we've made a lot of progress. Today, we can use the digitalization, we can apply the technology so we can better use the water resources, and we will be able to use better the land that we have. Have we made progress? Yes, but there's still a lot of room for improvement, and that's why we, the cooperatives, through the National Association of Cooperatives, we're trying to raise awareness on the Parliament so the work of cooperatives can be easier, can be more incredible. And we're also trying to produce in a healthier way, in a more friendly way with the environment. And I think this is key. So in Chile, we can improve the development of our cooperatives, not only produce for producing, but always looking at the environment so we can use a better usage, or we can use better our water resources and take care of the environment. People today need more technology, they need a better connectivity. So I think that we've made progress for sure. And I would like to stress again the fact that the cooperatives today are a feasible way to develop a country.
Muchas gracias, Agustín. Tampoco tenemos bonita historia aquí en Chile. Avancemos ahora.
Thanks, Agustín. You have a really nice story here in Chile to tell. Now we offer the floor to Simona. I guess you all know who Simona is. Maybe most of you know her. She's the coordinator of Redacop, which is the branch of the Cooperative of the Americas, in which we have the agro-industrial cooperatives and for industrial production as well. So you do have 5 minutes to make your remarks. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I would like to talk about Redacop before making my remarks. Redacop, it's a committee within the Cooperative of the Americas. We have different committees, and each sector of cooperatives has its own committee. Redacop is kind of the network of cooperatives, as she explained, for the agro-industrial cooperatives and agricultural livestock cooperatives of our continent. I think that it's important to strengthen our networks, and I'm going to talk about Redacop. If we really, as Carlos said, we are trying to gather information, we need to know how many we are. If we want to raise our voice nationally and internationally, we need to have data. We need to be able to show people who we are and who we represent. Oftentimes, what politicians want is to see what our value is. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for them to help us. We need to be honest. That's the way it works. I guess it's the same way it works not only in my country, but in your countries as well. So if we're able to strengthen our networks to show how many we are and how we are organized, it will be easier in the future to negotiate internationally and nationally, so we can negotiate the legal framework that will have an impact on the agro-industrial and productive sector. This is what we've been doing, and for us as cooperatives, we do have a 200 years of history, and this is the same worldwide.
Un mejor ambiente para la gente, un trabajo digno.
We want to have a better world for everyone, and we know those speeches.
Para nosotros muy difícil escuchar cuando
sometimes it's very difficult to hear others to say that we need to focus on the SDGs. I think that we all agree on the principles of the SDGs. It's not that we don't want justice, we don't want better education, better food, zero hunger. We all want that. However, the cooperatives, you who are cooperative members, you know that 200 years ago we've been working towards those goals. And our principles as cooperatives are part of that. When we talk about cooperatives, we talk about the agriculture cooperative in the American continent. We talk about cooperatives that come from the family production, big cooperatives in which we also have agro-industry, we have companies, and in which they participate on the GDP of each of the countries and in the exports, like the case of my country and the country of some of the colleagues that I see here. In my country, we're responsible for a big part of our production and of the exports of Paraguay. So when we talk about agriculture cooperative, we're talking about a very diversified and complex world, and that faces different issues. I'm really happy to see that we are talking about a legal framework to create cooperatives at the Latin American level. However, that's just the starting point. I think that we may have a legal framework for the creation of cooperatives. However, when we think about how to implement that and how is it that we can be part of a network, and when we start talking about trade, we need to think about cooperatives produce, but what's the purpose of that? We produce not only for consumption, but also to sell the products so we can reach the different markets, so these products can be exported. Going back to my country, we have 6 million inhabitants. We're producing food for 70 million people. Obviously, we won't be able to eat all. We will have to export. We don't have enough demand in Paraguay for everything that is being produced. So what happens is that we sometimes have to face some commercial problems with different legislation, and that's why we need to take a look to all that. Through cooperatives in our network, we want to unlock those problems so your agriculture cooperative can be part of the network. That would be great, but still we have a lot of work to do. Thank you very much. I think that one of the things you said about evidence, about contribution, who they are, where they are located, what's the contribution they're doing towards the achievement of SDGs, it's something important. However, the mapping that you were talking about in this moment right now is important because we haven't been able to finish the mapping. We lack information. But this is an opportunity as well to gather your feedback around what is being presented here, and maybe to include that as part of the report that we are about to publish. Now we would like to go over a Q&A session. You can ask questions, share your experiences, make your remarks, so we can expand our reflection around what will be the path that the agricultural livestock cooperative movement should take. What's the type of support they need? What are the things that have been done right? How is it that we can strengthen the exchange of experiences among cooperatives to maybe cooperate with another cooperative that needs greater support from another cooperative that is better structured, that is better established. We do have a program here presented by Douglas, the program that he presented, Clarity, that has very interesting initiatives. And I guess that many of you may have a question, which is how to be involved in that initiative. So I just offer the floor to any of you who would like to ask questions. We have Marcela here. She will be in the room, offering the microphone to those who would like to ask any questions or make any remarks.
Aí, Marcela, por aqui esses três e depois vamos vendo. Podemos fazer blocos de três perguntas?
So we can think about 3 questions. Please, could you introduce yourself, say your name and the organization you represent? Good morning, I'm Eugenia. I represent FEDACOP, the cooperative Catash, a cooperative of exporters from O'Higgins. We, as bee producers, we are really concerned about how we can feed our bees, especially when it comes to food scarcity. We're working with University Mayor to sort this out. And we've been working together with the university, and we have been able to offer food until May. And in addition to that, we sort out a food problem of the community. This is a gluten-free product, and we're able to also offer this as food for humans. So it was a way to offer healthy food, and I think that
Y yo veo cómo Canadá tiene hectáreas de canola y cómo
is something that is really useful, and in Canada we see great examples of that. However, in our region, we don't see these as healthy products. So we're mainly focused on offering sustainability to this type of industry, and we see this as a great benefit for our health. It's not that we are only thinking about gluten-free products. We want to think about products that have a lower water consumption, and I think that it's great to see a solution that is handy, and it's a strategic solution that only needs support from the authorities and allowing us to sort out big issues. Now we can offer the floor to the other participant.
Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Marcelo Orellana.
Marcelo Orellana. I'm a cooperative lawyer, and I pertain to an NGO. We're dedicated to visibilize, to train and give technical assistance to cooperatives to the social economy. Now, my question is, because during many years we participated with the program of Valparaiso government. I'm from Valparaiso NGO, to be able to build consumer cooperatives, producer cooperatives. We don't have any problem in the training process. But when we started to do all the connections, the relationship among the organizations of consumers and organizations that are productive organizations, we found that we needed to start from zero in generating a regional market. And maybe that experience called our attention for two main motives: for the not knowing what is the consumption cooperative as an alternative of collective consumption in our country, especially in Chile. The individual consumption in Chile really is head front. Now, also, because in the consumption cooperatives can make decisions on the consumption that approach more to the productive producers. So, my question is, in the mapping, in the research that you're doing, these consumption cooperatives, how relevant are they in the consumption market? And if there are any experiences of many spaces of cooperative market? That's my question first. And on the other hand, regarding the study of the new regulations presented by the North American Cooperative Associate. Are there any regulations? Have you been able to review any regulations regarding the formation of cooperative markets in other countries? This could be very relevant for us in our national reality, and also Latin America, but precisely in Chile, because this is very important to understand, and we also want to promote these trainings, not only to form cooperative members, because this is a task from the corporates, but the academia need to train the accountants with experience in cooperatives, technicians with the same experience, and lawyers with the same experiences, because we're only a few. So these are my two observations, and it's very interesting. Thank you very much.
Comentario. Pasamos aquí adelante.
Excellent. Your questions and comments.
Buenos días.
Good morning. I would like to greet and congratulate you for this wonderful event. I'm Francisco Serrano. I'm from the ONAF in Chile. My question, maybe reflection, is as follows. I would like to talk about trade, because all the initiatives that we're going to develop is very important to understand this aspect. There's no international trade among all the cooperatives in Latin America. I know that the mapping is done, the research is being done, but we need to consider all the commercial offer in detail, because there's a lot of information. Many countries are informed, others are not. So we were mentioning the possibility of international trade with Nicaragua among all the cooperatives. These initiatives should be developed. Otherwise, if we do not do any trade, where do we stand when we talk about international and national trade? Let's say this could be a very interesting dynamic for the internal market, domestic market. Consumption, we need to replicate these models. We're doing an effort. If we have a cooperative market and initiatives that we are developing, we need to pave the way. We really enter an agreement with a cooperative in Brazil, and that's the initiatives we need to promote. And we need to seek regulations that can be enabling for trade. I think that the emphasis should be on trade. Thank you very much. Okay. Any of you would like to make any comments, reactions?
Sí, con respecto a la pregunta del
Yes,
colega.
regarding the question of our colleague on regulation and the inclusion of access to the market, for example, yes, this is one of the areas that it's been analyzed through the Clarity Toolkit and also gives the alternative to promote law reforms regarding the access to credit for the cooperative. This is part of the toolkit. And regarding your comment, I would like to say that in our case, in the projects that we are implementing on productive development, we work, and I also mentioned we work in two areas, the increase of the productivity and expansion of trade, of agro-food products. We work with cooperatives that buy these products, but maybe to take that to other levels and regulations, I'm not sure if it's feasible or not. Because the market works as the private equity works. I am in charge as manager of the cooperative. I'm in charge, for example, of seeking all the sales channels of my own production. So in Peru, we work with a multi-million-dollar transnational that purchases some of our products. In the United States, we work with importer cooperatives from Agrifood products, which is our market. But in a way, it doesn't have anything to do with the obligation of the states towards the cooperative to be able to open these markets. It's us as cooperatives that we need to pave that way to seek those markets that are out there. They exist. Maybe the possibility of providing directories, portfolios that can identify those exporters, buyers, could be something that we could include at the level of the state, maybe. In the afternoon session, we're going to also talk about rounds of businesses and approaches of the, let's say, the cooperatives with the buyers. What will be one of the sessions in the afternoon.
Responder de alguna forma a las
to answer in a way the questions you have posed, I think there are many examples that we can see not at only at our continent level, but from other continents, to be able to understand we are many corporates worldwide, and why is it so difficult sometimes to be able to do that integration? We talk about integration, but when we go to the practice, it's very difficult to do that. There are very specific examples. We don't have enough time now, but we can do maybe some digital platforms of different markets that in some continents work very well. I saw, let's say, a direct transaction among Kenya cooperatives selling coffee to a cooperative in Bulgaria. So this is only through virtual negotiations. We have a lot of technology. We can take advantage of the technology, but I think we cannot forget the difficulties in trade that our different legislation can play against us. So we need to be able, basically, as cooperatives, to join. That's my invitation to the Chilean cooperative. Please approach us. Please approach us to REACOP. Approach the committee here. We have the president of our committee. So that's an invitation. Yes, we can work as a network. What we need to work jointly, we need to speak our voices and say, this is what we need, this is what we want, and to be heard. Right now, in that moment, we can be able to obtain many things compared to what we're obtaining today. I think the potential of the cooperatives is huge. We still have to do a lot of things, but we need to be strong enough to say, even though we have a lot of differences that we can have in cultural-wise, in different countries, in the way we work, we all have the same principles. We all work for the people, for our community, in our territories. So for any government of any country, we are a potential ally to be able to arrive to the communities in each part of the world. So the politicians need to consider that the cooperatives can be very good allies and partners for any government. And we're accustomed in our countries because we change countries every 4 years and so on and forth. And we keep on working with the government that we have right now is no problem because we work for the development of our community and we help the people. Any other reactions? I'm not sure what is the reality in the rest of the Latin American countries, but we need to institutionalize the public policies in the agri-food systems. This is not only a focus, we need to really, because there's no institutionality, only the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Ministry. Economy is on the other hand, health is on the other hand. So there's no integration. So if there is this possibility, we can strengthen the consumption cooperatives. And really, during the pandemic, we had a cooperative that really helped us a lot. But once the pandemic was over, there was no cooperative at all. So we need to strengthen those cooperatives that are there. And there are a lot of producers seeking agroecological seeds and other models that are very interesting to promote the indigenous production because we didn't have those seeds in our territories. That's very important to consider. So representing the family agriculture, sometimes it's very difficult as a sector to enter into other countries with our products, to approach these countries. In the 2 years ago, we have been working in which the large cooperatives, how these Colón, I know it's here, this large cooperative can support the small cooperatives and to really talk about business, because they're embedded in a national, international market. And through the National Association of Cooperatives, we have been able to really help the small cooperatives, really strengthening the smaller ones, and also can do maybe businesses abroad. The effort is being done in availability among the cooperatives that had the experience in the business, and also this is very important. This is my invitation to our cooperatives here present. There are a lot. And those who are also listening through YouTube. We are here to improve and to put our product abroad. We need much different policies. That is true. We need to build this through confederations, federations, but really paving the way. That's why I always said that it's very important the action of the Parliament, because these are not only programs and instruments, but we need to have a legislation that enables these processes like negotiations among all the cooperatives. Wonderful. Thank you very much. In the afternoon, we're going to have a session, a very important one, on legal frameworks, where these legal frameworks can make a huge difference, maybe to stagnate or to promote. Yes, I would like to just say that regarding the mapping, that research of the business volume on behalf of the consumption cooperatives. First of all, we have huge elasticity regarding the data. We have data coming from different countries that are a lot of information. And other countries, the availability of information that we have is just limited. For those countries that we do have data, in the report, we're going to share all the data analysis that is being done on behalf of the consultants, but also we have practical cases on how these numbers are going to be presented, but also should be a promotion to really adhere to a workshop we're going to have in trade among the cooperatives. The consumption cooperatives have generated different platforms. Let's say we have the CCOP system in Uruguay that is working very well. And as mentioned, also we have also digital platforms. The World Committee of Consumption Cooperatives and Agrifood Cooperatives are delivering some digital platforms for this commercialization process. So to have this direct contact of the cooperatives in Americas with the consumption cooperatives who want to really commercialize and trade these products in Asia, Europe, or Northern America. So to make available this information and these platforms for the cooperatives. And finally, regarding the mapping, we have focused also in the numbers as they are. We've seen the need of a phase 2 research of this directory of cooperatives because, yes, we have few data. This is going to be much complicated, the access to all information, to have a different name, contact of the cooperative, where it's located, what is the product, and what is capacity of production and commercialization. So this is scarce information. But this is our objective. This is our objective. We want to go there so we can have that directory. And we have maybe small businesses among the producers, commercializers, and trade cooperatives to be able to establish these commercial relationships. But right now, it's very difficult to develop, really, because if we have that directory, it's going to be an enabler. Sometimes also the market is different in each country and very remote, where we're talking about fresh produce that are healthy. Okay, that can make a difference. It's to give the value, what each country has in each territory, and to really rescue the culture, the food culture, as, for example, in the beekeeping that you just mentioned. This is part of seeking the market. And as said by the professor of the FAO, the market is not something that is out of our control. The market is built by ourselves. It's a social construction. So in a way, we are all helping so that the market is one profile or another. We have the legislator, the producers, the government, and international entities together working so that the market can be defined in a way. So we have a lot of opportunities inside and outside the country. Any other countries or comments? I would like to say that I'm Héctor Chaquet, General Manager of Obrera Cooperative in Argentina and President of Consumption Cooperatives in America and member of the World Cooperatives. Many of the questions are going to lead to a conversation at 2 p.m. Please stay focused because we're going to share some experiences of a purchase center developed in the national territory in Argentina, which has been very successful among cooperatives to trade cooperative products inside consumption cooperatives or cooperatives which can be agricultural and livestock that have their own supermarket in the population to meet all the members, and also international integration. We are doing very strong steps with other centrals in the world in a market which is very competitive. We need to enter with a lot of flexibility. We need to approach it with a lot of innovation and adding value. And the first step, which is a territorial and regional relationship, would be the most important aspect, pressing one, because it's very difficult to enter the international markets if we don't have quality standards that are necessary while the relationship advances. And the states should do the same thing to avoid losing those consumption cooperatives. Cooperativism is not simply part of the system. It's a system that grants solutions to the development inside the market economy, in which the main difference is the accumulation of the richness of social property. After applying all these very complex rules, this is going to be fundamental for the development of the region.
Gracias. Buenos días. Nubia de Caja
Good
Popular.
morning, I'm Nubia from Mexico. During the presentations, you talked about the success of production cooperatives when they became providers of the state. My question is,
idea o cuál ha sido la clave del éxito para que funcione de manera adecuada
has been the
consumo
reason for the success for this consumption from the state, those purchases that they do from the consumption cooperatives? Good morning, everyone. Well, I would like just to share my experience. I'm a young cooperative and I represent FEDECOBERA from Guatemala. We are a cooperative of second floor that gathers cooperatives that produce coffee and other products, essential oils, and my cooperative produces green and black tea, the only one in Guatemala. FEDECOBERA is a cooperative that is well known and with institutional capacity. We have worked hard to achieve the 7 certifications that allow us to be a company with credibility. And I fully agree with Simona. I think that we, as cooperative members, we recognize that one of the cooperative principles is the mutual support among cooperatives. Our coffee is considered globally as one of the best. We exchange products, we exchange experiences and services with the different cooperatives we have at the national level. As Cofe de Vera, we offer our services and our products for you all, so we can create a way to export our products within the agri-food system. You can be certain that we are a cooperative that follows these systems, these agri-food systems that aim at development as any other cooperative within the Americas for the development of its members. We are a cooperative that fosters the sustainable development using sustainable practices. We offer access to young people, we empower women, and we're a clear example of that being here today. So instead of a remark, what I wanted just to share my experiences. Thank you very much. I think we can offer the floor to someone else before we answer the questions, before we wrap up.
Donde tú digas.
Vamos con allá y después aquí.
Hola, buen día. Mi nombre es David Colimán.
I'm David Colimán. I'm a cooperative member. I have a question.
¿Cómo manejan la descentralización en sus países?
How do you manage decentralization in your countries with the entities that are in charge of supervising the cooperatives? Our reality is different from the progress you have made in your countries. I'm not complaining, actually. But rather a suggestion. In your countries, how did you decentralize what you do so you can reach small locations where the family production takes place. Going back to Chile, the bottleneck that we face here is that everything is being centralized. So many cooperatives from other provinces in Chile need to send information to one sector, and the deadlines are very big. So I just wanted to hear from you, and we'd like to know, do you have any platform, do you have a specific method that you use in order to sort out this issue? I believe that all Latin American countries are big, like the case of Brazil, Chile, Argentina. So I guess you do have something that makes easier that process, and that's exactly what I would like to hear about. Do you have any solution, any suggestion to overcome that issue? Thank you. Well, this is another person who would like to ask a question before we close this block. So let me just move forward so I can make my contribution. I'm Juan Jaime Olguil. I'm the chairman of this group of cooperatives of engineering. We work with different federations in the O'Higgins province. And I would like to go back to talk about the fact that the production is local. However, my contribution is that even though the production is local, the collaboration should be global. Otherwise, that local production will be restricted. Sometimes we have cooperatives with a lot of land, with great capacity, but what they lack is the link. And I'm talking about the link with the capital of risk. I was talking with Douglas earlier today that they have a reserve of $300,000 that they're using in Peru to make easier certain operations so cooperatives can foster their productive processes using those collaterals. In Chile, together with one university we're working with different funds, but the link with capital of risk is something that is not related to public organizations, to international cooperation networks. Capital risk is not part of what we're discussing as part of this discussion as cooperatives. We're still looking for funding in the traditional banking sector. In the last 20, 30 years, this is what we've been talking about, but there's no good financial tool for our sector, especially when we want to foster this type of infrastructure for local production. Why? Because cooperatives are not subjects of loans, and they don't work as traditional market. That's why we need different type of tools, and we may be able to have access to risk, capital of risk, because this is something that we need to do. We're part of the climate change risk sector, so we want to have a relation with the funds for capital of risk. We're talking about a lot of resources there, so maybe the whole cooperative sector should be more related with this type of sector in which they deal with capital of risk. Okay, so many things were asked here. Who would like to take the floor?
A ver, yo quiero responder una pregunta en particular, esa del compañero allá arriba. Okay,
so I would like to make a comment. When it comes to oversight the cooperatives, each country has its own legislation to supervise the cooperatives. I have here a colleague who could answer your question better, but just let me give you a clear example. I'm the chairman of the Confederation of Rural Cooperatives. We created this Confederation of Rural Cooperatives in order to overcome that issue. And I think that the issue we faced is similar to the one you face here in Chile. You do things in the whole territory, but the office is only in the capital city, and everything needs to be submitted there, otherwise it won't work. So what happens with our rural cooperatives? Well, they were operating far from the capital city. And that's the disadvantage. There was more red tape. They needed to wait longer for everything that has to do with supervision or oversight. Let me tell you how we overcame that problem. Well, we used the digitalization for that. And I think this is something that we need to use. Technology can be really useful in that type of situation. You can shorten the time, the distances are shorter as well. However, in many countries, in Latin America, we have the problem, which is that everything has to go through the capital city of the country, and that doesn't make easier the work of the cooperatives. So we need to think about modernization, and the cooperative that it was in the countryside was afraid about that type of change, but you shouldn't be scared about those changes. You just have to get used to it. Thanks to our cooperatives, the bigger ones that are well prepared, they can help each other. And this is exactly what we talked about when we talk about cooperation among cooperatives and the integration, which is one of the principles of our cooperatives. We need to be able to create networks nationally so we can help each other. And if we say we don't want to go to Santiago de Chile, the capital city, to take our documents, well, I guess that the supervisors will have to think about sending some reports digitally. And that's exactly what we need to do at the nation level, and I guess this is something that is really feasible for many of the countries. The colleague from Mexico was asking about the success factors for this project in which the state is buying from the cooperatives. Well, one thing is that in Brazil, the schools are more autonomous. We here have a tender process to do the purchases. Cooperatives and the companies are really good at managing. These are cooperatives that are consolidated. They have high quality products that are different from other products or commodities. And the other thing that I want to tell you are the public policies and support programs stated by the government, because as part of the policies, they need to buy from small producers. And thanks to technical support, what we're doing is to reduce the gaps. If, for instance, the food safety was not there, the technical support will focus on that, working with an expert, and then investments were done so there was better infrastructure. And also we offer technical assistance for those who want to sell their products. On the other hand, the payment is within 30 or 60 days, because if the payment terms is 90 days, that would be very difficult for cooperatives. So we're working today so we can have a loan. So in other words, the cooperative is going to buy, they have the PO, they will bill, and with that PO and with the bill, the state can grant a loan to the cooperative until the cooperative waits for the payment. It's kind of a state-owned factoring process. On the other hand, the venture capital should be used in the cooperative sector. And in our government, what we're pushing is a banking sector towards development. We have a fund for funds with different donors in order to create strategies for development so we can make easier this part for the entrepreneurs instead of them only having access to the traditional banking sector. Unfortunately, our sector is the weaker when it comes to receiving timely answers. Sometimes the technical capacity is not in the cooperatives. We acknowledge that, but we, as Confederation, Actually, 2 years ago, we said, okay, this cooperative is waiting for an answer. However, today we've made progress and there's willingness. Now, going back to digitalization, this is a pressing matter and is needed. However, that type of work is something that we need to do with the protagonists. If we want this to be a positive impact on the cooperative, we need to work with the cooperative. So if any cooperative is in the region, if they're part of the confederation, they need to show who they are. We're always discussing and we're always talking about policies that are different for our sector. And one thing has to do with the documentation that sometimes we need to submit for a specific project, and sometimes we don't have the documentation available and we are not able to be part of the tendering process. This is just something that we need to keep in mind so we can make improvements in the future on that regard. We have time for maybe 3 more comments before we wrap up our session of the morning. Hi, I'm Alejandra Vázquez Silva. I'm the Regional Secretary of the Ministry of Economy and Tourism. So I'm the representative of the Ministry of Economy in the Los Ríos province, which is 200 kilometers from the capital city. And as my colleague said, I'm also a cooperative member, and I've been a cooperative member for more than 15 years. I think that the role of women and rural women play an important role when it comes to resilience of agri-food systems. And I think that women foster the food sovereignty. Yesterday and today I heard many things around the gender approach, and many of the comments were focused on the caregiver aspect, and this is part of the issues that women face. However, there's something that hasn't been mentioned, which is violence against women, which is something that is even stronger in the rural area. This is an issue in Latin America, and in the rural sector, we see not only economic violence, which is the one that cooperatives address, but also physical and political violence. In Chile, we have to remember that half of the members of a cooperative are women. Around 30% of the positions are held by women in many of the confederations, and even when we look at the participants, we do have more women here, but yesterday we had more men in the room. So we need to think about female empowerment. And actually, we'd like to share with you an experience that we had in our region, in the fishery area. They suffer more violence and they don't have access to the markets. We work on women empowerment. As a result of that, we have been able to give life again to some of cooperatives thanks to female leaders who are part of this work. So I think that it's important to look at what we're doing in the cooperatives. What is it that the local governments are doing? What is it that is being done internationally around violence so we can empower women, so this leadership could also be transformed in the resilience of agri-food systems.
We have a question over here. Good morning. I'm Carlos Romero Loa, president of the Institute of Cooperativism in Uruguay, and manager and controller of the cooperative status in Uruguay. Really, what we're doing today is to get to know development and the experiences of the different countries that can help us really to advance in the cooperative sector in our country. In my country, Paraguay, I am the CEO of INCOP. I was CEO of the largest institutions of credit in Uruguay, but I'm also an agronomist and producer. For me, there's a duality in knowledge, meaning that the possibility that we may have as cooperative members and to be able to listen about the possibility of support that we have in the workshops in the afternoon with financing and also the possibility to really receive international support for our sector is very important. Now, regarding the agricultural cooperatives, a large percentage of the cooperatives are led by men who are CEOs here in Paraguay. It's the same situation where less amount of women in very key roles. So if we go to credit and savings, which is another sector, maybe we have the largest participation of women. And if we see the general picture of more than 2 million cooperative members, we say that 50% of the population is related or led by men. So, therefore, we see that half is really divided in 50-50, but it's not reflected in the production cooperatives. Due to our Latin practice in the business and development of the activities is always destined to the male sectors. So it's a huge opportunity faced with the consultations done. I think we have very clear defined regulation systems to norms, which are our norms, which are the different scenarios in which the cooperative should develop credit and savings, production, and other types of cooperatives. So the score related to the broader contribution or largest work of the sector. Those who are working in credit and savings are really who are inside the productive process without leaving aside. Because the vast majority of the cooperatives of credit and savings, the production savings, they do credit and savings inside their entity, but the largest volume is inside production. And other types of cooperatives are, for example, the labor, electricity, where this vast majority of economic development, the women are not included. That's the scheme right now. Now, if we go to the smallholders cooperatives, we need to work like the largest cooperatives in a way. We need to understand that because of the resources, the smallholders that live next to the large producers, the smallholders don't have access many times to the possibilities of the system compared to the large holders. And Paraguay is agro and livestock production. My dear colleague from Paraguay just said that we feed 17 million inhabitants with what we produce in grains. If we add the production of livestock and other types of food, easily, we are feeding a country more than 6 million inhabitants. We would be feeding 100 million people. That's our challenge. The development of equal opportunities of the smallholders, that in a way, we have a lot of positive experiences in Uruguay. There is an associate group of cooperatives supported by the Federation, presided by my colleague Simona, that participate in the process of the market, where the state offered that space for them, but serves the smallholder to be able to sell their products from the farm to the market. And few are aware of the reality, even in Paraguay, where the commercialized volume of those smallholders throughout the country generated income of more than $3 million for the families in rural families in Paraguay. So the idea is to have more than one central area, so we can contact the people, organize, because many times the smallholder has many difficulties in Paraguay regarding education, cooperative management. So we need to really tackle those situations. Thank you very much for all the wonderful presentations and sharing your experiences. We need to really learn from the experiences of our neighbor countries, and we will continue advancing because cooperativism is the experience and the future of the world economy. Thank you very much. We don't have enough time more, but still we may have 2 more questions. So we can wrap up the session, the morning session. Okay, let's do as follows. 1 minute per person, so we do not get delayed in the agenda. Okay, good morning, good afternoon to you all. I am Ademo Castro Jara, president of the Cooperative Unidos de Victoria, cooperative dedicated to production of livestock. Very happy to be able to participate. And in summary, we have a lot of things in common in the cooperatives, but I have a huge concern. The youth. What about the youth? We need to have the younger leaders in the cooperative. I would like to thank UNASA, who has done seminars on cooperative leaders, and the youth need opportunities. And I started very young, but we really need to understand that we need the youth in our cooperatives. We need to bring the youth, presidents, CEOs, and the academia should give us this information, and the youth need to participate. It's very difficult to find an accountant in Chile who knows about cooperatives, but we have the idea to be able to teach the youth to be leaders of cooperatives. I would like to thank all of you for sharing your experience, and again, please think about the youth, give them the opportunity. And those of us who have the experience, we need to accompany them. So let's help the youth. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your attention. 1 minute. You have 1 minute. Sergio González is my name. I'm accompanied by Baltasar Quiripay, president of the cooperative Gente de la Tierra, and I work in a small company dedicated to the management of all smallholders, SMEs. In the program, thanks to INDAP, we are taking charge not only of the creation of cooperatives, but also to ensure that these types of societies can be throughout time, really. And this is the moment, the key moment that we need to generate to promote the resources, because the governments throughout time, since 2003, when the law was modified and updated, wanted to give much more strength to the societal corporations, created a gap regarding the legal demands and internal capacities of the cooperatives what they can deliver. That's where we have not only gaps in these associations, but also gaps on the regulator side, because the idea is that the regulator of the cooperatives doesn't really understand the types of companies, supervises financial institutions that are much more complex, until cooperatives of 5 people, 5 members that really don't have a manager or the capacity to fulfill with the demands. So they are collapsed, and the cooperatives have also collapsed. They are going through a death valley because they cannot be able to organize their finances, which is not taught in the schools or universities. This is really difficult for all the smallholders and entrepreneurs. So there lies the challenges, not only to give working capital, but to give also flexibility. And I worked a lot of years in the financial institutions, and I can understand clearly the gaps. We still need, as financial institutions, so that they're really cooperatives, to give them a shift in the paradigms to assess the risk of the companies. Because we still don't have access to financing to be able to grow, because all the companies need to leverage in development of their businesses in a world based on consumption, as already been mentioned. That's what I wanted to share today. And I wish you success, all the cooperative members, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Okay, another question, comment, 1 minute. Patricio Nayan from the Confederation of Cooperatives, of National Corporation of Cooperatives. Briefly, I just wanted to mention all the topics mentioned today and yesterday. As a confederation, specifically with the cooperatives, have been doing a diagnosis. The most important here is understanding that the problems are different, but should be solved in a comprehensive manner. This is one of the main problems. How can we approach not only the financial aspect, training, preparation of professionals, but really, separately, we will not be able to have a real development. So how can we do to be able to promote the ecosystem of the cooperatives, considering also the pre-cooperative groups? And we don't have a campaign to promote those, which are going to be successful in the future. Otherwise, they will fail in the future. So my question or comment is, what can we do? What are the next steps to have a real strategy per country for development, for a food cooperativism in our sector? We can integrate the different institutions that do promotion, where we can regulate all the efficiencies and to integrate technologies, academia, to do this joint work, because it should have a vision of the development of the territory, and that finally can be able to fulfill what is already mentioned yesterday and today, to be a real development of the quality of life of men and women that live in the rural areas, and that really the cooperativism should be that tool to enable development. That was my comment. Thank you very much.
Gracias. Buenas tardes, Jimena Oyersun.
Jimena Oyersun, Ecomujeres. Very happy to be women in corporations, in cooperatives. And I would like to thank, because we had the opportunity as women to have the support to really strengthen our cooperation, and our journey during these past months has been a wonderful experience, that really we can be visibilized with what we have to go through. real estate here in Chile don't know about cooperatives, and the private banking closes the doors and says the cooperatives are really a problem for them, that we are not subjects of having access to credit. And without a doubt, I would like to thank all the men. We are 7 women that we have a laundry company trying to solve the problems of our community, small community in Chile. And here in our area, we didn't have that lamb wool, laundry of lamb wool. So that's, as women, we see that we need to wash the wool. So we bought a very antique laundry. We brought it back, and right now we are doing the operation process. So installing many things, thanks National Director of INDAP. We're going to be by your side because we need to collect all the wood that's going to be wasted in the region. And we need to do that as fast as possible. We're working with the environment. We're also going to plant seeds because we have available areas to plant seeds. We are cooperatives, and we would like to thank all the men and women. I'm not a feminist. I'm a working woman, and cooperativism is just wonderful. Thank you.
Mira.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand the floor to the lady in white, and afterwards we will close the session. This is very rich, but we need to close the session, unfortunately.
Florencia Donade, Agricultores Federados Argentinos.
Donade from Argentina. We adhere to everything was said by Simona. We share that. We would like to make a focus on the trade COP to COP because we are the cooperative, the largest cooperative in Argentina. We have added value to the associate production. We also have 30,000 SMEs associated, and we have a very important international trade, but none with another cooperative. So the demand, not only our demand, but all the demand is a commercial platform, is an international platform. So the international entities should be the ones who promote where we can really have a place to understand what are the offers of the other cooperatives, to offer our own products, to be able to have an international trade in cooperatives. We still don't know each other. We don't know what the others can offer. At national level, we do that, and we have other tools to do that, to really understand and exchange among cooperatives, to give the priority to the inter-cooperative trade, but not in international trade. We are producers, exporters, but we don't have COP-to-COP trade, cooperative to cooperative. So it's not only a design, it should be a commitment to say, how can we face a program, a specific program, to be able to create a platform or a program of cooperative international trade. That is our proposal and our request. I'm pretty sure we're going to deepen on that topic in the afternoon session. Camilo is going to lead the session in the afternoon. Okay? Final comment?
Para tú cerrar ese espacio.
Okay, to close this session. I'm not going to give any conclusions, but there are many experiences and many problems, as you've heard already. There are also solutions, wonderful experiences, precision agriculture. For example, Héctor Chaquet has a cooperative of youth dedicated to taking care for beekeeping, to take care, to really tackle the diseases. We also have other larger scale cooperatives, insurance for agribusiness, very consolidated. So the question is, many things are there, but the question is to go back to the beginning is chief economist says, okay, we need to think how to do more with less, because Douglas mentioned it already. He has a lot of resources from USAID, from the Department of Agriculture. Maybe he's left with only 2 projects. There's also going to be tariffs that are going to impact the resources for our own national projects. How to do more with less. I know there's a lot of note-taking right now, and what really is the idea or final reflection so we can, it's a takeaway, how can we work in a project, in a model can be applied in many countries, not all, obviously. We have to solve all the situations, or a way to report so that in 5 years we can say, okay, we have really met the SDG 2. So we need to understand the leverage. This should be the exercise. We cannot deliver that answer today, but for our partnership, just to feed our collaboration, how can we do this? This is what I wanted to say. Thank you so much. I will take your question to end the panel, and I would like to ask each and every one of you, if you're going to link just one element to enter that strategy, to position and to strengthen the cooperative movement, just one. We have a lot, but just one. Please do not repeat yourselves. Okay, first of all, let's see.
I think the private and public cooperation will be the element. And also, we need to think about FAO and ECLAC and how is it that they can facilitate businesses among cooperatives. Well, we have elections this year in Chile. If I were a cooperative member, I will put together the program and I will ask the different candidates to support my program, regardless of who will be elected. I'm more a left-wing follower, but yes, I don't want to repeat, but those 2 ideas are key. We need to unlock businesses, and we also need for the governments to understand, regardless of their political ideology, I want them to understand the value of cooperatives and how is it that can support them. Well, from the civil society perspective, what we need are those specific working plans with either FAO or CLAC, so we can understand how is it that we can impact cooperatives in the things that they need. And we, from our side, we need to think, we may think what they need, but we really need to know for sure what is it that their needs are. Since yesterday, we talked about regulation framework, public policies, laws, regulations, territorial policies, state policies. So I think that if we don't put together laws and regulations to have an environment that will promote the cooperative development, we won't be able to make any progress. Well, I think that the cooperatives have the opportunity of position themselves within the society, not only within the cooperative movement. So this is the House of UN. We're willing to keep on discussing and keep on finding ways to have alternatives for the strengthening of cooperatives in the different countries. I would like to thank you all for your contribution, for being here today with us. And I think that's all. Now Marcela will make some comments and then we can go and have lunch.
Les agradezco que permanezcan sentados hasta que les demos la
ask you to be seated until I provide some instruction. We would like to thank you to be part of this workshop to see the key role that agri-food cooperatives play, increase productivity and to expand access to different services in Latin America and the Caribbean. You can have access to the broadcasting in our website, and you can follow different activities for the International Year in the official website AIC 2025 Americas.coop. Thank you very much. Please remain seated.
Entonces, para quienes van a participar en la sesión de la tarde,